This man was stabbed in the back. Surrounded by gangsters, the boss laughed and said that SIA was nothing more than an old man, someone who could be discarded. In the rain, he limped, barely able to stay on his feet. Since the age of 18, SIA had dedicated his entire life to the organization. He committed every kind of crime until he became the leader of the gang that dominated Incheon. But on that day, he was stabbed in the back. When he opened his eyes again, something was wrong. His body was young. His hands were no longer those of an old man. Suk had returned to being 18 years old, back when he was still in school. Now he knows exactly who will betray him, and this time no one will be spared. He will dominate the entire school. Through the rain, a group of men walked with a clear purpose. They were the gang's elite, with Oh Young-Sayok leading the charge. Just then, one of his men reported that 5 of theirs had ended up in a hospital. Oh Young-Sayok was furious, calling the culprit a bastard for taking it too far. So without hesitation, the boss and his men stormed down a luxurious hallway. The goons at the door were startled, asking who the hell they thought they were barging in. With a mocking grin, the boss told the useless guards to get out of his way, and with a single punch, he sent the guard flying with absurd force. The sound of the door breaking startled everyone in the room, stopping the party cold inside their target. A man in glasses greeted him with heavy irony, but the local goons didn't like his nerve and asked if he was looking for a fight. He then questioned if his rival had the guts to touch his territory. His face contorted with rage. He asked him straight up if he wanted to die. Trying to de-escalate, the man in glasses said it was just a small misunderstanding. He kept provoking him, saying the boss had gotten old and couldn't see straight anymore. That's why he announced he could no longer serve under him. Declaring his betrayal, the boss got pissed and asked if he was done spewing all that nonsense. At that, his 2 loyal henchmen answered yes. Ready for their orders, so the leader ordered them to bring him. The head of that bastard who didn't know his place. One of his men charged forward in a swift and furious attack. But suddenly the boss glanced to the side, cursing at something that surprised him. He realized his own men were holding him back, not understanding why they were betraying him. The rival started laughing, saying the boss didn't get it. His time was up, outraged. He cursed the traitor and landed a punch on him. Then he threw an elbow at the other. The rival watched from distance, saying he had something else prepared for the boss. With that, he snapped his fingers, signaling for the next part to begin. And then several goons appeared, surrounding Oh Young-Sayok. Oh Young-Sayok was surrounded by thugs, armed with bats and pipes. He was in shock and asked the traitor how long he'd been planning this cowardly move. The rival just smirked, announcing the boss was retiring and that they should serve him well. And so the fight began, with all the goons rushing him at once. On a street of heavy, merciless rain continued to fall without end. Oh Young-Sayok, thrown to the ground, finally realized it was all over and that he was completely screwed. He struggled to get up, feeling an incredible amount of pain all over his body. Even in his weakened state, he cursed the traitor, remembering the bastard who stabbed him in the back. He swore he would get his revenge and kill him. But his body couldn't take it, and he collapsed. Unable to move, he just lay there breathless, feeling the weight of his defeat. He coughed hard, clutching his chest, and feeling the sharp pain of his broken ribs. Lying in the gutter, he thought that deep down, he always knew this day would come. A flashback began showing how, at 18, he had dropped everything to join the organization. To survive in this world, he stepped on and humiliated many poor, hopeless people. He even took the life of a detective who got too close to figuring everything out. He couldn't even count how many people he'd crippled in brutal gang fights in the past. And that's how, for 20 years, he climbed the ranks until he became the big boss. But in the end, this is what his shitty life had amounted to. He thought that maybe it was fair, that his miserable life should end exactly like this. A tear rolled down his face as he wondered if he could still ask for forgiveness. For everything, suddenly, he opened his eyes, startled, not understanding what was happening now. He found himself in an all-white space and was confused, wondering where the hell he was. He then wondered if he was dead, but thought the place was too quiet to be hell. A mysterious voice then asked if he by any chance regretted his past life. Startled, he looked behind him and yelled, demanding to know who was talking to him. But the voice simply insisted on the question, which made him very irritated. He clenched his fist and yelled for the bastard to just show himself once and for all. And at that moment, a bright light appeared, and a figure with wings began to descend. Shocked, he couldn't believe his eyes, wondering if that was really an angel. Oh Young-Suk freezes, staring up in disbelief at the sight before him. The angel then speaks, calling him a soul as corrupt as one could be. He tenses up. It explains that he has committed every evil a human being is capable of. The creature warns him that he should descend into hell and burn for all eternity. desperate at the sentence. He lets out a groan of pure dread and agony. But the angel remarks that it grew interested, after seeing a shred of regret in him. Confused, he wonders what this talk of regret is all about. The scene flashes back to him crying in the rain, feeling like a piece of garbage. Ashamed, he yells that he only acted that way because he knew he was a piece of shit, his pride wounded. He tells the angel to just take him to hell already. The angel then asks him what he would do if he were given a second chance. He falls silent for a moment, shocked by such an unexpected question. He asks what kind of bullshit this is, but the angel demands a quick answer. After a moment of thought, he answers firmly that he, at least, wouldn't live like that anymore. He adds that he would live like a normal human, without taking anyone's life. The angel says it's curious to see if his repentance is genuine. It wonders if humans are as evil as they say, but the man doesn't understand. The angel then offers a new life, but warns that his soul will not be saved. In that moment, a bright light flashes, striking him with immense power. He complains that the bastard could have at least given him a heads up. When the light fades, he opens his eyes, wondering if the angel is gone. But he finds himself in an old kitchen, not understanding where the hell he ended up. Looking at his hands, he realizes his designer clothes have simply vanished. Touching his body, he notices that all his old scars have also disappeared. Confused, he walks around the room, trying to figure out what the hell happened to him. He approaches a mirror, and his eyes widen at what he sees in the reflection. He doesn't see his mob boss face, but his own teenage self. He panics, unable to believe this is really happening. Suddenly, an old telephone starts ringing loudly, breaking the silence, startled by the noise. He quickly turns towards a shrill sound. A little scared, he answers the phone, and a voice calls him by name. On the other end of the line, a man shouts, asking if he's going to drop out of school. He doesn't recognize the voice, and the man gets irritated, saying he's the principal. Then he remembers the principal, who orders him to get to school immediately. Before he can answer, the principal angrily hangs up on him. He puts the pieces together: the house, his appearance, and the principal who knew his name. Then he looks at a calendar on the wall and sees the date is 1995. It finally clicks. He's gone back 23 years back to before he threw it all away. He begins to laugh with joy, tears of relief streaming down his face. Unable to handle the emotion, he collapses to the floor and starts crying nonstop. On his knees, he thanks the angel and promises to live a decent life. He remembers the angel's warning that his soul wouldn't be saved regardless, but only after some time. Did he understand what the angel's last words meant? Already in his school uniform, he gets ready with a confident smile on his face. He thinks that nothing else matters. He's ready to move forward with his new life. He decides that this time, he'll go to school and won't act like a thug anymore. While walking through the neighborhood, he hears someone shout his name loudly. It's an old buddy from the neighborhood, waving and asking where he's headed. Kim Suk-hyun was the neighborhood gangster and asked why he was going to school at lunchtime. He remembers he used to hang out with this guy, shaking down other kids for arcade money. But since it's been so long, he just waves back and says it's been a while. As an 18-year-old, he speaks informally, which shocks everyone around him. Kim Suk-hyun, who's already 20, gets pissed off at his lack of respect. He doesn't understand the dirty look, but the guy got angry because he wasn't speaking formally. Then he realizes he's 18 now and completely forgot about the hierarchy. Embarrassed, he tries to apologize, saying he messed up because it's been a while. Kim Suk-hyun asks if he has a death wish. He says he was about to introduce him to his bosses, but he had the nerve to be disrespectful. And at that moment, he remembers that this guy had connections to the real gang. The memory comes rushing back. It was 23 years ago that he was introduced to the organization, and the one who pulled him into a life of crime was this very same bastard. With his blood boiling, he realizes he's found the number one person to blame for his miserable life. He clenches his fist tightly as the other guy calls him a bitch with contempt. The gangster gets pissed, asking if he wants to be taught a lesson with a beating, but he just tells the guy to shut up, leaving the gangster shocked by his audacity. And with absurd speed, he grabs the blonde's face with incredible force. He squeezes so hard the gangster can't even speak, only groan in pain with a deathly stare. He calls the guy a complete piece of trash. The gangster panics, wondering how the hell this bastard could be so strong. Seeing this, the henchman nearby jumps in, yelling at him to let go of his boss. But Oh-young SEO catches the guy's fist, asking if he really had the nerve to hit him. And without a second thought, he retaliates with a powerful, precise punch with a devastating blow. He yells that the other guy was the one asking for a beating. The impact is so strong that the henchman flies backward, with no chance to defend himself. He then warns the nobody, whose name he can't even remember, to stay out of it. The blonde tries to call him crazy, but is cut off by a kick right to the face. Without mercy, he slams his foot into the gangster's face, Breaking his nose, he stomps hard on the ground, making it clear who's in charge now. And with another violent stomp, he crushes the chest of the guy lying on the floor, with his foot on his rival. He tells the bastard to repeat what he said earlier. He remembers that if it weren't for this punk, he wouldn't have had such a shitty life. The gangster asks if he's gone insane, and he wonders if his life was really ruined by a nobody. Blinded by rage, he clenches his fist, blaming the guy for all his misfortune. The blonde begs him to wait, but all he can think is that everything was because of this loser, and with a smile of pure fury, he readies his fist to end it all. Kim Suk-hyun screams in pain and despair, unable to escape just then. He remembers the angel's words, asking what he would do with his chance. But remembering his promise, he stops the punch at the last second and controls himself. He then takes his foot off the gangster, who's still on the ground, all beaten up. With a slap, he lifts the guy's face and tells him to stop cowering. He warns the punk to listen up, because next time he'll actually kill him. Then he tells them both to get out of his sight, if they don't want to die right here. The gangster stays on the floor, wondering what the hell just got into that psycho. He congratulates himself for holding back, since he couldn't screw up his second chance. With no more gang connections, he decides he's just going to enjoy his school life. The scene cuts, showing the imposing building of the school. He'll be attending, but in the principal's office. The first thing he hears is an order to drop out. Shocked, he listens, as the principal lists his 26 absences, along with cases of theft and violence. The man says he's tired of being nice, and that it's better for the school to get rid of him. He gets frustrated, and the principal yells that, if he's going to have that attitude, he should just get lost. He glares at the old man, and wonders if it wouldn't be easier to just beat the crap out of him. But he takes a deep breath to calm down, because he couldn't ruin everything now. He then tries to compose himself, and asks the principal if they can talk for a bit. He explains that he came here to study, and get his head straight, so they should help him. He then admits he's been an asshole to everyone, and the principal immediately agrees. But he questions if a teacher shouldn't be educating him, instead of throwing his life away. The principal is shocked, because he still talks like trash. But in a different way, he remembers that the old him would have wrecked the place, so he starts to consider the proposal. Then, the principal thinks that helping the worst student could be good for his career. Hesitantly, he asks if the boy is really going to dedicate himself to his studies. He raises his hands and says to trust him, because he can be expelled at the first mistake. The principal then accepts, deciding to trust him just this once, leaving the boy relieved with the situation resolved. He finally heads to his classroom. 2-4 inside, 2 students in the back were chatting about a forbidden magazine. The teacher was trying to hold a class, but the entire room was a complete mess. And at that moment, he walks into the room, drawing everyone's attention. A girl and another student look at the door, surprised by his unexpected arrival. He gets to the classroom door and wonders if he's in the right place, since it's been a long time. Then some guys recognize and call out to him, making him sure he's found his targets. The teacher sees him too and, surprised, stammers his name in disbelief. But the boy just smiles and waves at her, saying it's been a while at this. She's left completely speechless, blushing and unable to say a single word. The scene then flashes back to the past, showing the first day of class for that group. On that day, the teacher, Han Ji-hai, was introducing herself to the class as their new homeroom teacher. But right away, 2 idiot students started harassing her, asking if she had a boyfriend. Flustered, she asked them to calm down so she could start the class. The protagonist then chimes in, asking why she doesn't just answer, since it's an easy question. Then he provokes her even more, saying maybe she's never had a boyfriend. The teacher freezes in embarrassment, not knowing what to say in front of class. She tries to start the class again, asking them to stop messing around and focus. Just then the guy stands up and lunges at her, making the poor woman scream in fear. He gives a cynical smile and says it's just a joke, so he doesn't look like an aggressor. Completely terrified, the teacher can barely breathe. After the scare he gave her, the memory of that name, Young Sok, makes her clutch her clothes tightly. She thinks about how she wished he'd never come back, and wonders why he showed up. Seeing her distress, the other 2 bullies laugh and mock the situation nearby. Watching all of this, a fist clenches with rage and indignation. Oh Young Sayok punches both bullies in the head and asks if they are the teacher's friends. Then, he bows to the teacher and apologizes for being late, promising to be earlier from now on. She can't believe the scene, wondering what got into Young Seo's head. As he sits down, he calls out to the student with glasses, who gets startled by his approach. The protagonist tells the boy to share his book, telling him not to be greedy. The teacher is shocked since the problem student had never even pretended to want to study. Looking at him, she wonders if this is really the same Oh Young Seo from before the truth, however, is that the guy was breaking out in a cold sweat. Looking at the English book, he admits to himself that he doesn't understand a thing, since he's never tried to study in his life. On the way out, the bullies confront him, wanting to know what he was trying to pull. He just stares back and asks if they're mad. But the guys quickly chicken out with a smirk. The protagonist thinks that they're a couple of cute idiots. He then announces that he's decided to really try hard, to live a good life now. The two of them just stare blankly, not understanding a word he's saying. He gets annoyed and kicks one of them, telling them to shut up and head to the snack bar. The teacher watches the scene from a distance, still very worried about Oh Young-sayok. The scene cuts to him poking a straw into a juice box and drinking it peacefully in the courtyard. The guy goes crazy over the taste, saying he hasn't tasted this freshness in 20 years. The guys find it weird that he mentioned 20 years, but he tells them to mind their own business. Suddenly, a female voice greets him, interrupting his peaceful moment with the juice. It was a girl who heard the rumors and came to confirm that he had really returned. She then delivers the message, saying that someone named Yong-ji Appa really wants to see him. Upon hearing the name Kong Yong-ji, the protagonist is surprised, and the bullies are terrified. Just then, he remembers that this bastard really did exist. In his old school life, without a second thought, he walks to the location to meet the guy. Arriving there, he finds the gang leader, who asks if he's been doing well. The protagonist stares the guy down, clearly remembering his name. Kong Yong-ji, it's explained to us that this guy basically ran the whole school back then. He then cuts to the chase and tells the guy to get straight to the point, because things are different now. The gang leader calls him cold, but offers him a job to do with him. But the protagonist doesn't even think twice and tells the guy to go to hell straight up. With that blunt response, the boss is left speechless, not believing what he just heard. He then scowls with hatred and asks through gritted teeth what he just said. The guy repeats for him to get lost and asks if he looks crazy enough to work with an addict. The henchmen get confused and ask what this is about. Yangi being a drug addict, Kong Yangi turns red and starts sweating, wondering how the hell this bastard found out. The protagonist notices his desperation, knowing that the guy becomes an addict in the future. He then turns to leave, warning them to never mess with him again. Enraged, one of the henchmen runs to attack him from behind. Screaming in pure rage, the guy grabs his shoulder, saying that a newcomer can't talk to the upperclassmen like that. Ojong sighs and says that they just don't learn the easy way. As he feels his arm being twisted, the attacker screams in pain. Startling the others, he squeezes harder and says that pieces of crap like him aren't even worth a punch. Then he glares at the leader and asks if he should finish him off right now. Kong Yong-ji turns red with rage, fiercely cursing Oh Young-suk's name, and orders his henchmen to kill the bastard. The young man says he can't handle them all at once, but that he'll do something else instead. With that, he squeezes the wrist of the henchman who's holding him, making the guy scream in pain. He threatens to crush the hostage's wrist if anyone comes any closer, throwing the man into panic. The other henchmen start cursing him, calling the protagonist a crazy punk and a miserable bastard. He fires back, saying that they're the ones in the wrong for calling in a junior to intimidate someone. The protagonist points at the leader and challenges him, calling Kong Yong-ji out to a one-on-one fight. He proposes a deal, saying that if he loses, he'll do whatever they order, but if he wins, he becomes the boss. The henchmen think it's absurd and shout for their leader to wipe out the rookie, to force the fight. He tightens his grip on the hostage's arm, telling them to fight like men. The leader thinks that the bastard Oh Young-sayok is just trying to provoke him. He believes he won't fall for the tricks, but realizes the situation isn't good enough to ignore. Oh Young-sayok then tells him to think carefully, because this is the only way out for everyone. He says that his brain should know the best option to resolve the situation. The henchmen tell him to screw off, but the young man only shows a satisfied smile. At that, the leader gives in and says he'll let it slide, ordering him to release the guy and disappear. One of the henchmen gets outraged, asking why they're letting that arrogant bastard walk away. But Kong Yong-ji explains that saving their friend is more urgent, and that he'll deal with the guy himself later. He then confronts the henchman, asking if he's trying to challenge him, and the man backs down. Oh Jun-sayok releases the hostage and says he's sick and tired of these boring excuses. As he leaves, he bumps into another guy, telling him to move aside because he doesn't have time already. At a distance, he sighs in relief and thinks that luckily, his bluff worked perfectly. From afar, the leader wonders how that bastard discovered his secret. The protagonist rubs his ear and swears to himself that he'll repay the humiliation. The scene then shifts to the school courtyard, with the whole class doing group exercises. And there among them, we see Oh Young-sayak, stretching along with the other students. He reflects that he solved one problem, but worries about the future and the cost of life. As the exercise continues, he becomes hypnotized by a girl running in front of him. A memory surfaces showing a guy mocking the girl and asking if she's stupid. The other girls around her start laughing, leaving the glasses-wearing girl embarrassed. She lowers her head, completely ashamed, hugging her own body, unable to react. He takes a closer look at her and realizes he's seen her somewhere before. What really catches his attention is a small scar on her arm. The scene shifts into a flashback, showing the girl crying desperately in a dark place. She was surrounded by 3 shadowy figures, with wicked smiles, completely cornered by the group. Then a hand grabs her arm tightly, making the girl scream in sheer terror. We are then shown a clipping from an old newspaper, with her photo printed in the article. The memory comes rushing back, and he realizes she was the girl who committed suicide. Upon realizing this, Oh Young-sayak is left in shock, breaking out in a cold sweat at the terrible memory. He looks at her again, remembering the girl's full name, Sin Jae-hee. Students are playing basketball on the school court. Oh Young-sayak sits in the bleachers, cursing himself for not having realized all of this sooner. The young man thinks that his second life wasn't a gift, because he forgot what mattered most. Memories of guys like Kim Suk-hyun and Kang Yong-ji flood his mind, and of course the image of the girl. Sim Jae, he also appears in his thoughts. He realizes that the mistakes he made in the past still exist in this new chance. Looking up at the sky, he laments how much of a piece of trash his former self really was. Not knowing what to do, he wonders if he should at least go apologize. On his knees, but when he looks back at the field, he notices that the girl is no longer there. From a distance, one of the bullies he mocked earlier is spying from behind a door. He feels a chill run down his spine and immediately suspects that those bastards are up to something. Without wasting a second, the protagonist runs toward an abandoned warehouse on the school grounds with a powerful kick. He smashes the metal door to force his way inside. Inside, he explodes in fury and shouts, asking what those assholes think they're doing. Surrounded by an aura of fire, he glares at the attackers with a look of pure hatred. With his teeth clenched, he shouts, asking what those bastards think they're doing. Without thinking, he lands a devastating kick on the first guy, leaving the girl in shock. The bully is sent flying backward by the blow, crashing hard to the ground without even being able to breathe. The other attacker barely manages to react, and before he can finish speaking, the punch is already coming. The protagonist lands a clean hit, smashing the second bully's face in. The impact is so brutal that the guy can only open his mouth and scream in pain on the ground. The first attacker coughs and asks what got into Young-sak, completely confused, but the protagonist is already stepping on another guy's face who screams, asking what they did wrong. The stomp lands squarely on the man's chest, making him cry out in pain from the violence. He keeps stomping without stopping, demanding to know why they were bullying the girl. The attacker on the ground can only scream in agony, getting beaten with no chance to fight back. With his eyes shining with fury, he tells all those pieces of trash to die. The girl watches everything, crying nonstop, completely terrified by the scene of violence. The last guy left asks if he's gone crazy, unable to understand why he's acting this way. With his eyes red with hatred, he completely loses control of the situation. He then charges at the last guy and throws a punch with all his strength. Into his stomach, the bully's eyes roll back as he collapses to the ground, writhing in pain from the brutal blow. He lifts him up and shouts that yes, and he is crazy and that they'd better disappear before things get worse. He warns that he's holding himself back with everything. He is not to kill the bastard right there. With that, the bullies help each other and flee the warehouse, all beaten to a pulp then. He puts a hand on his head and thinks that now he can understand everything perfectly. He understands why she killed herself and remembers that it was around that time that the guys were expelled. With a smile, he concludes that the fault isn't his, since the attackers were punished. He approaches her to ask if she's okay, thinking she'll thank him. But when he touches her, the girl lets out a scream of terror and shrinks back against the wall. The young man is left completely confused, wondering why she's avoiding him like that. He realizes she's staring at him with a look of pure fear, as if he were a monster. Irritated, he questions what she saw, since he just saved her from those guys. The scene shifts to the hallway, and he finally understands the girl's fearful reaction. The memory returns, showing that their first meeting happened for a very trivial reason. That day, he roughly asked what she was doing. In front of the door, Sim Jae. He apologized, explaining that she had dropped her pencil case and telling him to go ahead. He simply walked past her, thinking that the girl was very clumsy and weird. Inside the classroom, the routine went on like any other normal school day. The protagonist was always laughing and chatting with his friends, the bullies of the class. One day, he noticed a girl who was always sitting quietly and alone at her desk. He asked his friend who she was, and the guy said it was the loner Sim J. He confused the protagonist, wanted to know why, but his friend couldn't explain the reason. The guy just said that her face was depressing and that the way she acted was annoying. His former self thought the same thing, seeing the girl as an idiot and extremely irritating. Because of that one day, he walked by and deliberately pushed her, purely out of malice. He remembers that he started bullying her, simply as a way to pass the time. And as the days went by, mocking and laughing at the girl ended up becoming the most normal thing in the world. On one occasion, she begged him to stop, but he didn't even understand what she was saying. The memory shows the bullies walking away, while the girl cries, with him just standing there watching. At that time, he only looked at her and thought how pathetic she seemed. And just like in the past, the girl in the present was also curled up, trembling with fear. Oh Young-suk finally understands that to Sim Jae-hee, he is no different from the other aggressors. The young man wonders if he isn't even worse than the guys who attacked her. He asks himself if that's why the angel brought him back. To this moment, as he approaches, the girl shrinks back in fear, unable to even look at him. She squeezes her eyes shut, bracing for the worst, and letting out a whimper of terror. But suddenly, he simply bows and apologizes, leaving the girl surprised. He asks for forgiveness again, apologizing specifically for the scar on her arm. Sim Jae, he is left in shock, her eyes wide open, unable to believe what she just heard. With his face flushed, Oh Young-seok repeats that he's sorry, showing genuine remorse inside the classroom. A commotion forms, with a group of students surrounding a classmate. The students nearby whisper among themselves, clearly nervous about the fight that's going on. Two of the aggressors are already on the floor, one of them complaining that his teeth were broken. Meanwhile, Oh Young-seok simply watches everything in silence. Seated at his desk, the bullied thug grits his teeth in pure rage, unable to accept what just happened. He gets up and shouts that he's going to report Young-seok to the police. But Young-seok doesn't care. Young-seok says that's exactly why he's trash, because he thinks the police can solve everything. He steps closer and asks what the guy thinks will happen after he gets released. At that, he grabs the bully by the collar with force, leaving the boy in a panic. Young-suk warns him that he might not remember, but that he saw clearly what happened. The bully's friends are confused, asking what went on during physical education class. But Young-seok ignores them and yells right in the guy's face, demanding an answer about who was worse. The aggressor is terrified, starting to cry in fear, unable to say a single word. Then Young-seok looks at the others and gives them a warning to stay sharp. He threatens to kill anyone who tries to act smart, making the message crystal clear. Scared, the other boys stammer and agree immediately, not even thinking of fighting back. Young-suk sits down again, grumbling that they're a bunch of useless idiots. The classroom falls silent, and all the students keep their heads down, frightened by the situation. Then he calls out to a boy with glasses, who jumps when he realizes he's been noticed. Young-suk asks where Sim Jae-hee went, and the boy replies that she went to the infirmary. The classmate asks if something happened to her, but Young-suk tells him to shut up. We're shown a flashback of the girl crying, completely terrified by something. Worried, Young-suk thinks to himself, hoping she doesn't do anything stupid. He tells the boy to wake him when class starts, but the kid says it's already about to begin. Irritated, he complains that he lost his sleep time because of those idiots. Suddenly, the classroom door opens, and the sound of footsteps echoes. It's teacher Han Ji-hee, who arrives cheerfully to start the remedial class. She stands at the front of the room, ready to begin the day's lesson. With a bored expression, Young-suk asks the classmate next to him to borrow a pen and paper. He starts writing on a sheet of paper, beginning with the first letters of a word. On the paper, he writes the title list of mistakes, listing the things he needs to fix. With a determined look, he thinks that he needs to correct the mistakes of the past, one by one. Then he looks at the girl's empty desks, already knowing what the first item will be. Young-seok writes her name on the list. Sim Ji, he is the first person he needs to help. He grows thoughtful and wonders how he's going to do that, since it's his top priority. We're shown that he's saved her, but other girls still mocked and looked down on her. So he writes next to her name, the goal to make her stop being lonely. Young-soo realizes that her problem is being alone and starts thinking about what to do. The scene shifts to the teacher, who looks completely lost and awkward. At the front of the room, the entire class is a mess, with everyone sleeping or not paying attention at all. He looks around and thinks, It's unbelievable that not a single student is listening to the teacher. Because of that, he writes the teacher's name, Hanji, he, as his second mistake to fix. Next, he adds to the list that he needs to quit smoking and also stop swearing, but suddenly, he remembers something very important that he had almost forgotten. The fifth item on the list is his father, whom he refers to as an old bastard. He thinks that now he has a lot to do, like graduating and getting a job. And lastly, he writes down the things he never managed to have, like friends and love, but he immediately regrets it, crumpling the paper and saying, that wasn't what he meant. The classmate beside him is confused, not understanding Young Sayok's strange reaction. He asks what the boy is staring at, and the kid says he was just curious about what he was doing. The bell rings, signaling that class has finally ended, and the students can go home. Young Sayok stretches in relief, but is interrupted when the teacher calls out to him. She asks him to go to her office before heading home, leaving the boy surprised. Han Yi-hee explains that it's a bit strange to talk there, and that she'll explain everything in her room without fully understanding. He simply agrees and says it's fine, accepting the invitation. The scene shifts to the teacher's lounge, where she asks him to come in and sit down. She starts to explain why she called him, but Young Suk interrupts her immediately. Suddenly, he bows deeply in front of her, leaving Han Ji-hye stunned and confused. He then apologizes for all the bad things he's done. Showing genuine remorse, Han Ji-hye is left speechless and completely shocked by his unexpected apology. She processes the information for a moment, still surprised by the attitude of the troubled student. Then she comments that he really has changed, just as she had suspected. He doesn't understand, but she explains that she noticed a big change in his behavior. Because of that change, Han Ji, he says, she has a very important request to make of him. Young Suk is confused, wondering what she could possibly want to ask of him. She then explains that since he's big, and the others fear him, she needs a favor. He imagines it's something simple, like asking him to help keep the class quiet. But the teacher surprises him by asking him to stop the others from bullying Jae-hee. Hearing the girl's name catches him off guard, as he didn't expect the request to be about her. The teacher explains that Jae-hee herself said that he helped her earlier. At school, he asks where she is, and the teacher tells him she sent her home because she wasn't feeling well. She then confronts him, asking if he knows that the girl is frequently bullied. The teacher explains that it's hard for Jae-hee to defend herself because she's very passive. He questions her trust in a gangster, but she fires back saying that he's trying to change. Young Suk is shocked, since everyone else has always treated him like a delinquent. He realizes that she's the first person to notice his effort to become someone better. Because of that, he accepts the mission and promises that no one will lay a finger on the girl anymore. But he steps closer and says he has a condition, making the teacher curious. With a confident little smile, he says he has one condition in order to help her. The teacher grows nervous and asks, stammering what kind of condition that would be. He then leans over her desk, leaving the woman visibly frightened. In panic, she starts thinking there's no way he could be hitting on her. She yells that she's a teacher, but he surprises her by asking her to teach him English. The woman is shocked by the request, repeating the word English in disbelief. Then she asks if it's true that he wants to learn, and he confirms that it is. He explains that knowing the language will be useful, since he doesn't even know the basics. Embarrassed, he wonders if she'll laugh at him for not even knowing the alphabet. But to his surprise, the teacher accepts the request right away, leaving him stunned, super excited. She says she'll prepare great materials for extra lessons after class. He doesn't understand why she's so happy, since he only asked for this to have a better life. Feeling a bit strange, he says goodbye, while she assures him she'll prepare everything. Watching him leave, she thinks that he's truly changed and into a much better person. Another teacher asks who she's talking to herself about, but she just lets out a small laugh. The sun sets on the horizon, marking the end of another long day of classes. At school, Young Suk walks slowly toward home, leaving the schoolyard behind. He takes a deep breath, thinking it was a tough day returning to school life. Then, he wonders how he's going to endure the next 2 years. In this routine, he stops and looks at the city at dusk, reflecting on the future that awaits him. But when he sees other girls chatting, he thinks that maybe things aren't as bad as they seem. He feels embarrassed by his thoughts, wondering why he's acting this way. Suddenly, he sees a familiar figure and is shocked to realize it's Jae. He doesn't understand why she's still around, so close to the school at that hour. The girl is standing there alone, looking lost and unsure of where to go. She then starts walking very slowly, as if she doesn't want to go home. Jungkook approaches her quietly, and the girl jumps when she sees him. He asks what she's doing standing there, calling the situation pathetic. The two stand side by side in silence, simply watching the sun set over the city. He forbids her from skipping and orders her to come to school every day, starting tomorrow. He says he'll teach her how not to be mocked anymore, and tells her to let him know if anyone messes with her. The girl is surprised, and asks why he's doing this all of a sudden. Not understanding, he asks if she finds it strange that the guy who bullied her is now helping, but she denies it still. He agrees with her, admitting that he was trash, who never listened to anyone in class, and that he raises his hand toward her, as if he's about to do something. Then he places his hand on her head, gently patting her and leaving her speechless. The boy softly strokes her hair, making the girl blush deeply at the gesture. With a smile, he says that from today on, he's going to try to live a proper life. She keeps staring at him, still surprised and flushed by his sudden change. Awkwardly, he looks away as she starts trying to thank him for what he did. She thanks him and he gets flustered, but it seems like he liked hearing it. Suddenly, his expression changes as if something irritated him. In a burst of anger, he grabs her hair roughly, yelling at the girl. He messes up her hair and says she should curse at him. Not thank him, the pedestrian light turns green, signaling that they can cross the street. He says goodbye and tells her he's heading off, waving as he starts walking. He stops and asks if she said something, but the girl denies it and says it was nothing. Then he tells her to hurry home, grumbling that she's really boring. He says goodbye and crosses the street, while she watches him and softly calls his name. Looking at the sun, he thinks about how she can still be grateful, calling the girl an idiot. As he walks, he thinks about the two of them and wonders what he did to such good girls. He continues on his way home, still reflecting on all his past actions. Suddenly, an angelic figure appears and says that he's trying in his own way, but warns him that this is only a small part of his mistakes and that it will keep watching him. He stops, remembering that there's nothing to eat at home. This is the soul that was once pure evil. The scene shifts to a modest neighborhood at night, showing the building where he lives. He holds his list of mistakes, now completely crumpled after that outburst of rage. Already in his simple bedroom, he studies the list and starts thinking about his future. He worries that even if he learns English, he might only manage to get a job at a factory. But when he sees the date on the calendar, April 20th, 1995, he has a brilliant idea. He remembers that the IMF crisis will make stock prices crash in a few years. With that, he already imagines himself as a millionaire, thinking he's incredibly clever for such a perfect plan. But then he stops and thinks again, feeling that something about this idea is wrong. The angel appears in his mind, and he fears being sent to hell if he messes things up. To make matters worse, he realizes he needs money to buy those stocks in the first place. He looks at the clock and sees that it's already late, thinking he should start getting ready. To satisfy his hunger, the boy prepares some hot ramen, steam rising invitingly from the pot. He eats straight from the pot, commenting that it's been a long time since he cooked. For himself, suddenly, the shadow of a man appears at the glass door of his room. He turns around immediately, realizing someone is standing there, silently watching him. The door opens and an older man enters, commenting that he got home early today. With a suspicious look, he asks his son if he skipped class again. Young-suk is shocked and frozen when he realizes that the man is his father. The scene then shifts to a flashback, taking us outside a prison. We see the cold, empty corridor of the jail, with cells lined up one after another. A guard shouts to prisoner 473, Oh Young-sayok, telling him he has a visitor. He stands up, thinking the visitor might be his older brother, his Hyung-nim, but when he sees who it is, his expression changes to pure hatred, and he curses in anger on the other side of the glass. His father calls to him, with a look of sadness and concern. He turns to leave, but his father begs him to stop and talk for a moment. The father is devastated when he hears his son tell him to get lost, unable to believe his words. Young-sok shouts that he doesn't want to see him anymore, since he doesn't even have money to pay his bail. Completely shattered, the father drops to his knees, crying desperately, seeing the scene. Young-sok thinks this is the best option, that it's better this way. He tells himself that the old man should forget about him and just live his own life. In another flashback, it's revealed to him that his father had died, leaving him devastated. A police officer explains that the old man died from stress, and that Young-sok shouldn't have hurt him so deeply. The official document in his hands only confirmed the cause of his father's death. The officer also comments that the body took a long time to be found, since there was no one around that night. From the cold prison window, all that could be heard was the sound of his crying. He breaks down in tears, cursing the old man, while regret consumes him from the inside. Curled up in the corner of the dark cell, he apologizes to his father, feeling guilty for everything. Suddenly, his father's voice brings him back to reality, pulling him out of that nightmare. His father scolds him for just standing there, without even saying hello. When he got home, he says he cooked some ramen and tells his father to wash his hands and come eat. Young-sok shouts that he's just trying to be a better son and tells him to go eat, already proud. His father wonders if his son has finally matured, because of that attitude embarrassed. Young-suk thinks that he almost forgot that his father was still alive. He realizes that the simple fact of his father being there fills his heart with happiness. And so father and son sit down at the table to eat that simple meal together. The scene opens with Young-suk eating ramen, completely focused on his food. His body is covered in bandages, showing that he's been through a lot recently. Then another flashback begins, and he remembers that when he was younger, he didn't like his father at all. After all, it was hard to like an alcoholic and violent father, which made his mother run away from home. When he became a troubled youth, his father finally seemed to straighten out and went to work back then. Young-suk thought the old man only wanted money to drink more. But the truth was different. Without him knowing, his father had completely quit drinking to take care of him. But the boy's rebellion was so intense that he ended up being taken away by the police. To his father's despair, the old man cried a lot, shouting at the detectives that his son would never do something like that. Back in the present, Young-suk laments, not having realized his father's sacrifice. At the time, tears stream down his face as he remembers that his father was the only one who never abandoned him, seeing his son's state. The father looks confused and asks if he's crying. Quickly, Young-suk brushes it off and blames the chili in the ramen, saying it's too spicy. The father scolds him, saying he can't handle spicy food. But Young-suk just tells him to eat. Night falls, and he feels deeply grateful for having a chance to return to a time where his father was alive. In the early hours of the morning, the light in the family's house is still on, showing that someone woke up early. His father is already up getting ready to leave. While complaining about back pain, Young-suk appears and asks why he's already awake, saying he doesn't look well. He insists that his father rest and see a doctor. But the old man stubbornly says he's fine. For the first time, the boy calls him dad, leaving the man completely surprised by the gesture. With a red face, Young-suk asks his father to come home safely and not overwork himself. The old man is shocked, unable to believe those words of concern coming from his son, but then he smiles and agrees, telling his son to enjoy school as well. His father finally leaves, and Young-suk lets out a sigh, relieved that he managed to say those things. He thinks that he'll help his father have a good life, even if he has to go to hell for it. Day breaks, and the neighborhood seems calm, with everything ready for another school day. Jungkook walks down the street, yawning and complaining that the exhaustion is hitting hard. Today, he stretches his whole body, already suffering at the thought of having to endure student life for a while longer. But halfway there, he runs into two delinquents he knows very well. Kim Seo-kun is calmly smoking a cigarette on the stairs. The guy gets startled and jumps back when Young-suk bluntly calls him by name, with his face red in anger. The blonde asks why he's picking a fight. So early in the morning, Young-suk simply raises his hand, and the bully immediately shrinks back, afraid of getting slapped. Young-suk bursts out laughing, mocking him for acting tough while being a total coward. With a smile, he advises Kim Suk-hyun to stop pretending to be a gangster and get a job. He turns around and walks away, telling the guy to straighten up and live a decent life from now on. As he finishes, he adds that the guy should live a proper life. Just like he does, the scene changes, and now we see the school entrance, with other students arriving for class. Inside the classroom, everyone is restless, chatting and making the usual mess. But the atmosphere feels different. One student is badly beaten, while another watches in silence. Young-suk enters the room and takes his seat, finding it strange that he arrived so early. Nearby Sim-jae, he is sitting, completely oblivious to everything happening around her. He watches her, thinking about where he should start a change. Such an isolated girl with a plan in mind. He approaches the class nerd and calls him over for a talk. Young-suk asks the boy to switch seats with Sim-jae, leaving the classmate very confused. The girl walks over trembling, and he simply tells her to sit there for a moment. She sits down, clearly nervous, hands clasped together, not knowing what to expect. He then leans in to examine her face, which makes her even more frightened. In his imagination, several versions of himself are inspecting her, leaving the girl extremely embarrassed. He thinks that the first step to making her stop being invisible is changing her appearance. So he asks if her eyesight is really that bad, and she timidly confirms that it is. He tells her to relax, and out of nowhere, snatches the glasses off her face in one swift motion. The girl becomes extremely embarrassed and asks for her glasses back, saying she's ashamed, but Young-suk is shocked when he realizes she's much prettier than she seemed. He tests her vision with his fingers, and she says it's a bit blurry, but she can still see. He finally understands. It was those granny-style glasses that made the pretty girl look like a nerd. So he forbids her from wearing the glasses, except during class or things would get ugly for her. Young Sayok hands the glasses back, but warns her that he still has one last thing to say. Pointing his finger at her, he demands that she bring money the next day. Scaring the girl, she agrees fearfully, and he gets furious that she thinks he was trying to rob her, seeing the class gossiping. He shouts that it's not like that at all, leaving everyone confused. He assures her that her life is going to change, asking her to trust him for just 1 week. The girl feels hesitant and embarrassed, but in the end she accepts his proposal. With the mission accomplished, he relaxes and takes a heavy nap. Right there at his desk suddenly, the classroom door is violently thrown open. Interrupting his sleep, a hulking brute storms in, shouting, calling Young Sayok's name in fury. The other students are completely terrified by the arrival of this new character. With a twisted smile on his face, the guy orders Young Sayok to wake up immediately. Young Sayok stands up angrily and asks who's disturbing his peaceful morning, and the rival challenges him to a fight. The brute points at Young Suk, calling him out in front of everyone. But Young Suk is totally confused, since he's never seen that guy in his life. The man explains that he's there because Young Suk beat up his friends, confusing him even more. He then points at the bully who got beaten earlier, who confirms that the big guy is his friend. Young Suk rubs his forehead, already fed up with having to deal with yet another problem. He tries to remember if he knew that guy from his past life, but he doesn't recognize the face. Losing patience, he dismisses the guy and tells him to go back to his classroom and stop bothering him. But the brute doesn't like the answer at all and stomps hard on the floor, showing his anger. Young Suk yawns, saying he just wants to sleep peacefully until class actually starts. Out of nowhere, the guy throws a full force punch straight into Young Suk's face, catching him by surprise. The impact is heavy, and Young Suk grinds his teeth, feeling both pain and rage rise inside him. The other students and Sim Jae, he stare in shock, unable to believe what they just saw. Then, the guy's friend shouts that he's a professional boxer, and that Young Sayok is in serious trouble now. The two stand face to face, fists clenched, ready to start a real fight. With a serious look, the boxer prepares to attack, showing that he's not messing around. Young Suk complains that he's just trying to live peacefully, but nobody will leave him alone. With a smile on his face, he wipes the blood from his mouth and admits that the guy knows how to punch. But now things have gotten serious, and he warns that he's about to teach him what a real punch is. The news of the fight spreads, and curious students rush to the classroom windows to gossip. One of them shouts that the brawl is between Young Sayok and Do Jun-soo, drawing even more people in. Out in the hallway, a very stylish girl hears Young Suk's name and seems to take an interest. Back in the classroom, the boxer gets ready to attack, his fist clenched and filled with rage. Jun-soo punches at Young Suk, frenetically moving at impressive speed. The boxer shouts, saying that a street delinquent knows nothing about what a real punch is. Young Sayok only defends himself, realizing that the guy is full of energy and coming at him with everything he's got. His plan is to endure the rapid punches, waiting for an opening so he can counterattack. But the boxer smiles, showing that he has perfectly understood what the strategy was. He warns that he's not stupid and that he's already figured out exactly what Jungkook was planning. When the punches stop, he thinks he's found the opening he wanted. He celebrates, thinking Young Suk was an idiot for falling into such an obvious trap. But suddenly his eyes widen when he sees another punch coming straight at him, incredibly fast out of nowhere. Young Suk lands a powerful low kick to Jun-soo's legs, turning the tide of the fight. The low blow throws the boxer off balance, as he never expected an attack like that. Young Suk then smiles to himself, showing that his plan is going exactly as expected. The guy calls him a coward, but Young Suk replies that this isn't a ring with rules. Furious, the boxer ignores everything and charges forward with a punch full of hatred. The punch lands squarely on Young Suk's face, who takes the hit head on. The boxer is confused because the attack didn't seem to have the effect he imagined. Young Suk then taunts him, saying that his punches are starting to feel much weaker now. With a hammer punch, he strikes the guy's chin, catching him completely off guard. The blow is so strong that the boxer's body is thrown backward, with no chance to defend himself. Only then does he realize he's been tricked, having fallen perfectly into Young Suk's trap. Young Suk grabs him by the collar, warning that the real fight is only just beginning. Without mercy, he slaps him with all his strength, leaving a mark on his rival's face. Then he continues with a series of slaps, completely humiliating the guy. The students and Jay, he watch everything, with their mouths wide open, unable to believe the violence. Already exhausted, the boxer raises his hand and shouts, begging him to finally stop. He's completely beaten up. The guy cries and admits defeat, begging forgiveness for everything he said. But Young-sok smiles and says that he is not really friends with those two bullies. The boxer is shocked by the revelation, and the other two cowards shrink back in fear. Young-sok then grabs him by the collar, saying that he's never seen him before, no matter how hard he tries to remember. He then asks if Kong Yangi was the one who sent him there to cause all this trouble. The guy trembles in fear and stutters, trying to deny knowing anything about it. Tired of the lies, Young-sok throws another punch to see if he'll finally talk. He warns that he'll find out one way or another, so the guy might as well die right there. His expression changes completely, revealing a side of him that no one there wanted to see. With his nose bleeding, he looks at the terrified students, who don't know what to do. Then Jae-hee steps in, holding out her hand and asking him to stop the fight. The girl's plea works, and he drops the guy to the floor. Still extremely irritated, he walks past her and simply says he's going to the bathroom, telling her to pass the message on to the teacher. The girl stays there calling his name, completely worried about what she just witnessed. The scene cuts to the bathroom, where he washes his hands to clean himself. After all the chaos as he washes his hands, he remembers that all of this has happened before. In his past life, a flashback begins, and we see that in his other life, he was a very problematic delinquent. Back then, he went around beating people up and breaking everything in his path, not caring about anything. Other students would stare at him, and all that attention only made him even more energized. Because of that, he grew crazier and acted without thinking, believing that was how he would be accepted. But now he realizes it was all a huge mistake, only it was already too late to go back. Those looks from his classmates weren't ones of acceptance, but of pure fear. He understands that everyone was just afraid of him and avoided even crossing his path. Back in the bathroom, he punches the sink in anger, frustrated by his own memories. Then he laments to himself, saying that he still has a long road ahead of him. The scene changes, and now he walks alone through the empty school hallway. Lost in thought, he wonders what he's going to do about Kong Yong-gi, who orchestrated all this trouble. He considers going after the guy to put an end to it, since he knows he won't give up, but he also knows he can't, because he's already on the principal's radar and needs to find another way. In the middle of the hallway, he ends up bumping into someone, and papers fly everywhere. The protagonist walks on angrily after the collision, already shouting for the person to watch where they're going. But in the middle of the scolding, he freezes when he sees something he never expected. On the floor, Han-ji-hai apologizes for the fall, saying the papers blocked her vision. Then he recognizes her, left speechless when he realizes it was his teacher, standing there at that moment. She recognizes him and asks how he's doing, still not noticing the awkward situation. He tries to warn her about her skirt, but she only understands when she looks down. In Scream, she asks if he saw everything, but Young-suk plays it off, thinking to himself that the view was good, trying to change the subject. The teacher picks up the papers and says it's better to deliver them right away. She then reveals that she prepared all of that for him, leaving Young-suk completely confused. It turns out they were the English lessons he asked for, since it would be hard for him to keep up with the class. He's surprised that she did everything in just one night, and the teacher looks a little embarrassed. With a gentle smile, she tells him to start with the basics, and to look for her if he has any questions. Oh Young-sok is left speechless, simply staring at her, touched by her dedication. In his thoughts, he reflects on her effort, finding it deeply moving because of that. He decides to forget the problems with Kong Yong-gi and focus on living properly. The scene shifts to the classroom, with Young-sok trying to study the English alphabet. He then asks the classmate next to him how to pronounce a letter, and the boy corrects him. Young-sok understands the logic and thinks he's a genius, while the classmate is left speechless. The class continues with the teacher, explaining about an ancient sword that is now in Japan. Outraged, Young Seo asks why something that belongs to them is there, and In-ho explains that it was a gift. But Young Seo gets irritated and starts speaking badly about the Yakuza, leaving the boy frightened by his reaction. Suddenly, the classroom gets noisy, and the students begin getting ready to leave. The effort is so great that Young-suk's head starts to feel like it's smoking, and he passes out on the desk. Yoon-ho calls out for him to get up, but Oh Young-suk wakes up very irritated, wanting to know why his classmate then tells him that the next class is music, and they need to change rooms. Young-suk thinks the boy is useful and smart, deciding to keep him as a friend. With a shout, he slams his hand on a chair and points at the classmate, who gets completely startled. He keeps pointing in silence, leaving the poor Young and Ho even more confused. Then he asks the boy's name, and he replies that it's Young and Ho, thinking they already knew each other. The scene changes, and now we see the music room, ready to receive the students. When they arrive, Young-suk asks where to sit, and In-ho says the seats are free. He decides to sit in the back to take a nap, but someone shouts that the seat is already theirs. Inside the room, some girls order another student to sit in the corner, and the girl obeys without complaining. She ends up sitting alone in a corner of the room, with a very dejected expression. But suddenly, Oh Young-seok sits down next to her, leaving the girl surprised. He asks if she didn't like it, and the nervous girl says no, that everything is fine. She quietly thanks him, and he brushes it off, saying he sat in front so he could study better. In the background, the girls who bullied her start whispering with looks of disdain. The scene cuts, and Young-suk appears with a furious expression, not understanding what's going on. That's because the girl's desk is completely smeared with milk, with several insults written on it. Seeing this, he explodes in anger and shouts that he'll kill whoever did it. But she holds him back. The girl asks him not to worry, insisting once again that she's fine. He can't accept it, but she explains that everything is okay, since it's not the first time. Young-suk becomes even more irritated, grinding his teeth in rage at the situation. He then shouts at her to do whatever she wants, and walks away, leaving the girl behind alone. She looks at the dirty desk, with a very sad expression on her face. Without saying anything, the girl takes a tissue and starts cleaning up the mess they made. Young-suk watches her clean the desk, looking thoughtful about what just happened. At that moment, In-ho approaches and asks if he's really going to leave the girl alone like that. The classmate continues, saying that he seemed happy when she talked to him that morning. Irritated, Young-suk tells In-ho to go help her if he's so worried, and pushes him away with a determined look. He seems to have made a decision about what he's going to do next. He watches the girl cleaning the chair, and frustrated curses under his breath for not being able to do anything. The school bell rings loudly, announcing that the school day has finally ended. Outside, the girl walks alone as she sees other students leaving in groups. Suddenly, a voice behind her asks if she's satisfied. Startling the girl, it's Young-seok, questioning whether she's happy, just running away and feeling sorry for herself. Embarrassed, she can only apologize, but he explodes, shouting if that's all she knows how to say. He reminds her that she stopped him from fighting earlier that morning, and the girl replies that it was because violence is bad. The redhead agrees, but asks if she would silently take it if someone came up and hit her angrily. He points at her and says that's exactly what she's doing with the bullying. He then explains that they don't do it because they hate her, but because she's become an easy target. He tries to advise her, but the girl interrupts him, saying that she already knows that too. With a trembling voice, she admits that she's an idiot and an easy target for them. Crying, she vents that she couldn't do anything because she was afraid they would do even worse things. Hearing the girl's confession, Oh Young-seok falls silent, his face filled with surprise. She continues, explaining that she just wanted to be ignored and live a peaceful life without provocation. The girl begins to sob in front of him, while he watches in silence, not knowing what to say. After a while, he breaks the silence and asks in a low voice if that was really it. Then, without warning, he grabs her wrist tightly, leaving the girl frightened. He pulls her along and tells her to follow him, ordering her to stop complaining and just come with him. She asks where Young-seok is taking her, and he tells her to just trust him. When they arrive at the destination, the girl is left in shock, not understanding what that place is. He then reveals that he brought her to an arcade, since she looked like she had never been to one. With a confident look, Young-suk gets ready and tells her to watch carefully. Then he throws a powerful punch at the machine, making it shake from the impact. The score shoots up, showing everyone how strong his punch was. He turns around and brags about the result, leaving the other students with their mouths wide open. Then he says it's her turn, but he says she doesn't know how to do it. Young-suk gets irritated, tells her to stop denying it, and orders her to just do what he says. She prepares herself awkwardly, and he complains, saying she doesn't know how to do anything. Because of that, he steps behind her and starts teaching her the correct stance to throw a punch. He explains that the most important thing in a punch is the rotation of the hips to generate power. The girl turns completely red and nervous because he's standing so close to her. She whispers that he's too close, but denies it when he asks what she said. He then tells her to think of someone she wants to punch and to hit with all her strength. Encouraged by him, he throws the punch. With all the anger she had been holding inside, she startles at the noise, commenting that it was much louder than she expected. He then asks how it felt and whether she didn't feel the stress disappear. Instantly at that moment, the redhead admits that he comes here to punch things. He's very stressed suddenly. He looks at her seriously and asks if she happens to be an idiot. The girl doesn't understand anything, completely confused by his sudden question. He says it's better for her to say what she feels, instead of keeping everything that hurts her inside. Then, he admits that he did a lot of stupid things to her, and that he's doing this to apologize with that. Young-sok raises his pinky finger, proposing that they make a promise. He swears that he will help her escape the bullying, no matter what, even if it costs him his life. So he asks her to immediately tell him anything. That annoys her deal. The two seal the agreement with a pinky promise, solidifying the new pact. The scene shifts to late afternoon, with the sky painted in colors by the sunset. While walking home, he teases her, asking if she imagined his face when she punched. But from afar, someone watches them and laughs. Sinking Yung Shoki Shakrules idiot. The bully Kong Yong Gi celebrates, saying that he finally found a chance to finish her off. The scene cuts to the next day at school, where a new plan is already in motion. In the classroom, Jae, he looks thoughtful, her face flushed as she remembers the previous day. She recalls the promise Young Sayok made, that he would protect her no matter what. With renewed energy, the girl seems determined to finally tell him about the bullies. But suddenly, someone slams their hand hard on her desk, making her jump in fright. However, it's not Young-suk, but Kang Yong-gi who apologizes for not being him. The girl freezes and asks who he is, since she had never seen him up close before. With a sinister smile, he introduces himself as a senior, who came to be her savior. He tells her not to worry, because he already knows everything about her situation then. He reveals that Young Sayok mistreats her, and that he's the one who caused the scar on her arm. At that, he turns to his lackey and asks if Young Sayok isn't a very bad guy. The other boy agrees immediately, confirming that he really is a terrible person. Kang Yong-gi then says that he came to help, and that she just needs to go to the teacher's room. His plan is for her to accuse Young Sayok of everything, showing the scar as proof. Kang Yong-gi says that they will be witnesses, ensuring that Young Sok gets expelled from school. He promises that her life will be peaceful, since the redhead is already in the principal's sights. Then he boasts that he can get rid of the girls who bother her, and she thinks that's how he used to be. But Jae reflects that now Young-suk is different, and even promised to deal with the bullies. The villain calls her naive and shakes his head, saying she still doesn't understand. He then says that Young-suk only helps her out of fear, because he knows he could be expelled because of that. She thinks that maybe she's completely misunderstanding his intentions, for being foolish, noticing her confusion. Ganjong Zismai, thinking he has finally convinced her. But she decides that even if it's a lie, she wants to trust Jong-suk, because he was the first one to help her. The bully's smile disappears for a moment, and he asks sarcastically if that's really her answer. Suddenly he grabs her clothes violently, completely out of patience. He shouts that he was far too kind, and threatens to destroy the rest of her school life. The villain says she's getting full of herself, just because Young-suk protects her. But he's not stupid. Then he reveals his plan, saying that he already took care of everything. And her eyes filled with tears. We're shown that Young Sayok was caught in an ambush, and is already almost dead. The lackey assures that no matter what happens, Young Sayok is finished today. Vespritae screams no, calling her friend's name through her tears. But as the villain orders her to obey, a furious shadow appears at the classroom door. It's Young-suk, completely battered and out of breath, staring at the scene with intense hatred. Kang Yong-gi is left in shock, unable to understand how he managed to escape, and get there with her voice trembling. The girl can only call his name, both relieved and worried. Grinding his teeth, Young-suk explodes, and shouts Kang Yong-gi's name with all his strength. In a flashback, one of the lackeys shouts in rage, getting ready to attack with a baton. But Young Sayok is faster and lands a powerful kick, hitting the guy squarely with the impact. The bully collapses to the ground unconscious, and the redhead finds it ridiculous. He then warns that he had already told them not to lay a hand on him, since he didn't want any trouble. Ending the fight, Young Sayok stomps hard on the face of one of the men lying on the ground. He asks whether the seniors are crazy, or if Kang Yong-gi was the one who ordered this. But even while being beaten, the lackey on the ground starts laughing. In a very sinister way, the guy taunts him, saying he thinks he's smart, but now he's screwed, not understanding. Young Sayok asks what nonsense he's talking about, growing even more irritated. The bully then says it's over for him, and also for that disgusting, lonely slut hearing the insult. The vein on Young-suk's forehead bulges instantly. He flies into a rage and grabs him by the collar, shouting about how dare he call her that. And then Young-suk realizes that he had been talking about Sim Jae-hee. The whole time the scene shows more lackeys finding him and rushing at him to attack, grinding his teeth in fury. He calls all of them bastards. Young Sok charges forward with a bat in hand, screaming that he's going to kill them all. The scene takes us to the school corridor, which is completely empty and silent. Suddenly, one of the lackeys takes such a strong punch that his head snaps to the side. Another gang member is struck by a heavy blow, right in the middle of the arm. The attacker falls to the ground screaming in pain, while Young Sayok watches him. Without hesitation, he smashes another enemy's head with the bat, breaking the wood at that moment. One of the lackeys smirks, thinking his plan worked perfectly, but he becomes confused when a mysterious hand grabs his face tightly. It's Young Sayok who mercilessly delivers a powerful kick. Straight to his face, the other bullies grow afraid, but one of them shouts not to be scared of him, even panting and covered in injuries. Young Suk refuses to give up the fight. With that, the lackeys rush at him together, ready for the final attack. He stands his ground, shouting for all of them to stay away from him. One of the aggressors clenches his fist tightly, preparing the next blow against Young Sayok. In the end, Young Suk backs away down the corridor, leaving his enemies fallen on the floor. With trembling hands, he carefully opens the classroom door. Young Suk peers through the crack, but his face quickly changes to an expression of shock. Inside, he sees Kong Yong Gi and his group, holding Jae-hee against her will. The gang leader seems completely confused by the situation. Through her tears, the girl calls out Young Sok's name, begging for help, blinded by rage. He screams Kong Yong Gi's name and charges at them. Without thinking, one of the lackeys panics and calls him crazy, telling the other to block him. But Young Suk is faster, landing a solid punch squarely on the first bully's face. Next, he swings another punch into the other lackey's face, who doesn't even see it coming. He turns to face the leader, but his eyes widen at what he sees. With no time to react, Kong Yong Gi shoves him away. The impact sends him flying back, crashing into the classroom desks. Desperate Jae, he screams her friend's name, unable to do anything to help. Yong Gi calls him arrogant, asking how he dares to hit a senior. With that, he raises his foot, ready to stomp on the boy lying on the ground. Kong Yong Gi steps on Young Sayok's head, shouting that he's going to pay for this today. With the foot pressed against his face, the redhead can only groan in pain, nearly being crushed. The leader then yells that the school belongs to him, and he won't let a freshman take it over. But suddenly he grabs him from behind, begging him to stop the fight. Irritated, he slaps her, ordering the girl to get away from him. Immediately seeing that, Young Seo is blinded by rage and screams Kong Yong Gi's name. The aggressor turns around in surprise, not understanding where that strength came from. With his eyes glowing red, Young Suk charges forward, making Yangi think about how to block, but he's far too fast, landing a clean punch right in the senior's face. The impact sends Young Gi's body flying backward. Completely helpless, the other lackeys stare in shock, unable to believe that their leader was defeated. Moments later, he runs to Young Sayok, asking if he's okay after the fight. She apologizes, blaming herself for everything that happened because of her, but he turns to the others, ordering all those cowards to listen carefully. Young Suk hugs Jae-hee and warns that he'll kill anyone who dares to touch a single strand of her hair. He continues saying, that applies to anyone who bothers her for no reason, terrifying the lackeys, and even to anyone who bullies her behind her back. Frightening the two girls, he shouts that if they touch her again, but is interrupted by a surprised voice. A teacher enters the classroom, demanding to know what this mess is. In the middle of class, the man becomes furious with the redhead, calling him a thug for causing yet another incident. Without hesitation, he looks at Young Seo and shouts that he is expelled from school. Young Seo only listens to the teacher's lecture. With an empty, unresponsive look, the man shouts that he trusted him, but he got into a fight, and that's why he's expelled. Then the teacher turns to Kong Yong Gi and warns that he won't let this slide for him either. But the bully just agrees with a smile, saying of course he won't. In his thoughts, he celebrates, because the victory is his, as long as Young Suk is gone. The redhead notices the enemy's trickery and blames himself for not being more careful. He clenches his fist, wondering if this is how his school life is going to end. But that wasn't the real problem. What worried him was how Jae-hee will be treated if he were expelled. Since things had reached this point, he decides he'll crush Kong Yangi before leaving. He then prepares a punch ready to finish his rival, right there in front of everyone. Yangi is terrified, unable to believe the crazy freshman is really going to attack him in the classroom, but suddenly, his fist is grabbed by a hand, leaving him completely confused. It's Jae-hee who steps in front of her friend, stopping him from continuing. The teacher asks who she is, and the girl introduces herself, saying she needs to speak. With cold sweat on her face, she prepares to tell the whole truth about the fight. Jae-hee tells the teacher that if Young Suk is expelled, she will leave the school as well. Everyone is shocked by the declaration, and Kang Yong-gi calls her slut. She explains that the fight started because she was being blackmailed, and he defended her. The teacher gets irritated, muttering about what kind of crazy situation that is. Suddenly a voice speaks up in agreement with the girl. Surprising the man, it's Professor Han, who suggests they investigate the cause of the fight before anything else. She says that maybe he really did all of that to help a friend. Young-suk looks at the teacher, surprised by her words of support. In the background, Kang Yong-gi clenches his fist, furious that everything went wrong for him. He wonders why all the girls are defending that damn freshman. The scene changes, showing a brush scrubbing the floor, with him complaining about the humiliation. We see that Young Seok is cleaning the bathroom, as punishment, finding it absurd. At least he wasn't expelled, but he soon realizes he isn't alone there. He appears at the doorway, and he asks why she hasn't gone home yet. He jokes, telling her to come in and help, but she's too embarrassed to enter. He asks why she defended him, leaving the girl confused by the question. Young-suk explains that he heard when Kang Yong-gi told her to lie about the abuse. He says that was the perfect opportunity for her to finally get revenge on him. But he replies that she did it because of the promise they had made. She reminds him that he promised to help her escape the bullying. Once and for all, hearing that, the protagonist falls silent, just staring at her without a reaction. Then he smiles and says he has to keep his word, since he was the one who promised. The two remain standing in the bathroom, with him looking like he has an idea in mind. Suddenly he remembers something and asks if she brought money with her. The scene shifts to late afternoon, with he nervous, not knowing where they're going. It's revealed that the two end up in the city's adult entertainment district. The place is full of women in short clothes, standing in the doorways of the establishments. He tells her not to stop, but she stammers that this is the adult district. Her face turns red, and she wonders if this is why he asked for the money. But Young-suk just flicks her forehead, making her yelp in surprise. Annoyed, he tells her to stop thinking nonsense, and hurries her along from afar. A mysterious man watches them, finding it strange to see students in uniform there. He recognizes the Sampo school uniform, wondering who they are and why they're there. The scene changes to a beauty salon, where a woman greets them and welcomes them inside. She's surprised that they're students, but he says there's nothing wrong with that. Then he asked her to take care of the girl, to make her prettier than a celebrity. With his hand on her head, he blushes in embarrassment, not knowing what to say. The hairdresser praises he's silky hair, saying it's beautiful because she's young. But she notices that the girl looks like she's never styled her hair, as if it's been a year since she last did. He then confesses that it's her first time at a salon, surprising the woman at that. The professional compliments Young-suk as well, saying he has big eyes and nice skin. She asks what grade he's in, and the redhead replies that he's in his second year. The woman comments that she heard that school is full of problem students, but she's surprised by how polite he is. He gets irritated by her chatter and tells her to focus on his friend's hair already. Suddenly another employee approaches and asks if he brought his girlfriend to the salon. He denies being her appa, but the woman insists that he doesn't look like a student. Annoyed, he sarcastically replies that he's actually 20 years older than her. The woman stares at him closely and seems to notice something, making him nervous, but she jokes, saying he looks older because he got someone pregnant, which makes him furious soon after. She changes the subject, complimenting his looks and calling him handsome. Then she throws herself at him, inviting him to ditch the girl and stay with her. Instead, he just lets out a sigh, thinking the whole proposal is a huge, tasteless joke. With a smile, he asks if she called the girl tacky, questioning her nerve. Then he tells the woman to take a look and see how the tacky girl looks now. At that moment, the hairdresser announces that the work is finished, revealing the transformation. He looks at herself in the mirror and is shocked, unable to believe what she's seeing. She wonders if that person in the reflection, with her hair done, is really her. He says that now her true face is showing. Surprising the girl, she asks if it doesn't look strange, but he says it's much better than before. The professional praises the girl, who thanks her for the work. With a shy smile, he asks who's tacky now, leaving the other employee, completely irritated by the scene. As they leave, the woman thinks she's never had such interesting clients. He tells to keep that look when going to school. Surprising her, he also tells her to visit a tailor to adjust the size of her uniform. She worries about the teachers, but he says everyone dresses like that these days. Suddenly, the mysterious man deliberately bumps into his shoulder. Looking for trouble, he stares at the two of them and warns that this isn't a place for kids, telling them to leave. Chung Seok gets irritated and asks who that lunatic is, wondering if he wants to die. But suddenly his expression changes to one of surprise, as if he recognizes him from somewhere. That's when he realizes the man in front of him is Jong Sung-soo. He asks if he knows him, but he denies it and just tells them to leave. In his thoughts, he remembers that the old man was also at the salon. Earlier, it's revealed that in his past life, he was the first person Young-suk killed. The scene shifts to the protagonist's home, where he's now alone in his dark bedroom. He sits on the floor, thoughtful and unsettled by that unexpected encounter. Irritated, he mutters that he can't stop thinking about that damn man. At all in a flashback, it's explained that Sung-soo was part of a rival gang he had to eliminate. He realizes that the neighborhood they were in was that rival gang's territory. But something is wrong because at that time, he still didn't know that man existed. At that, he wonders if all of this was some kind of setup by the angel who helped him. Frustrated, he throws himself onto the floor, deciding he won't contact him anymore. His father enters the room and asks why he's grumbling, telling the boy to go to sleep. He decides to let it go, thinking it was just bad luck, that they ran into each other earlier. The night passes peacefully, with the full moon shining brightly in the clear sky. But in the middle of the night, he wakes up with an overwhelming urge to use the bathroom. Then he sees a shadow in the kitchen and asks why his father is awake. His eyes widen in pure terror, because it can't be who he's thinking of. It's Jong-sung-soo who asks with a smile if he thought he wouldn't be recognized. The man accuses him of killing him to achieve success, but the redhead desperately denies it. Then he says that the time has come to pay for his sins, leaving the boy terrified. With that, the figure turns into a monster and charges, screaming that this time he'll die. The protagonist jolts awake, screaming in fear because of the horrifying nightmare. He looks around the room, relieved to realize that it was all just a dream. But as he complains about the nightmare, the house phone starts ringing nonstop. He answers and discovers it's his teacher, asking if something happened to him. She explains that he didn't show up and didn't notify anyone, leaving him completely confused. At that, he looks at the clock and realizes he's already missed the time to go to school. From his window, a shout of pure rage echoes as he blames Jong-sung-soo for being late. Far away, Sung-soo feels his ear itch and wonders if someone is cursing at him. With his uniform all wrinkled, Oh Young-suk runs desperately. Cursing for being late, he wonders why he took so long, blaming some bastard for this whole situation. Arriving at school, he shouts Jong-sung-soo's name, calling him a damn bastard. Elsewhere, Jong-sung-soo scratches his ear, wondering why it's itching. The scene shifts to the classroom, where the students were making a huge mess. Suddenly, two students freeze, staring in fear at something by the door. It's Young Sayok arriving out of breath, wondering if the first class is already over. He steps inside and finds the silence strange, wanting to know why everyone is staring at him. One of Yangi's lackeys calls him by name, his voice clearly nervous. Young Sok turns and stares at the two boys, who are sweating cold with fear. The bald one then confesses that they messed up yesterday, saying Yangi forced them to do it angrily. Jungkook replies that he already figured that was what had happened. A flashback shows that he was busy dealing with Jong-sung-soo and ended up forgetting, but it's explained that he became the strongest in the school after taking down Yangi's gang. Back in the present, he clenches his fist tightly, showing he's not joking around. Without thinking twice, he gives the two lackeys a double smack on the head, making them scream in pain. He calls them sneaky foxes and tells them to go apologize to Jae-hee right now. Then he reflects that being the strongest isn't all that great and wonders where Jae-hee is. At that, one of the guys says she's over there with the girls, pointing to the other side. He looks and sees the bully girls surrounding her, questioning her new look and even her glasses. Irritated, he complains that he went through all that trouble to boost her confidence, but nothing changed. The girl is left speechless, just looking at them with a shy, embarrassed expression, but then he gives a slight smirk, thinking that maybe the situation has improved a little. Suddenly, a lucky warns him that the principal sent for him, leaving Young-suk terrified. The scene then shifts to the teacher's room, a place full of desks and computers. When he arrives, teacher Han Ji-hee greets him, but says the principal isn't there. She asks why he was late, since he hadn't been absent in the past few days. Teacher Ji-hee looks at him with a gentle gaze, showing her concern for the student. She says it's fine, and that he doesn't need to apologize, telling him to go to class. Deeply relieved, Young-suk thanks her and bows, celebrating having escaped a scolding. He feels really happy, thinking that blessings come to those who live kindly. But soon his expression changes, as he realizes he has a small problem. In his rush, he forgot his lunch at home, and now he's starving lying on the desk. He's approached by someone, asking if he's not going to eat lunch. It's Jae-hee, who timidly asks if he wants to eat together with her. He refuses at first, asking if she thinks he's some kind of beggar. But then, she opens her lunchbox full of food and insists, making him drool with desire. He accepts, saying he'll eat for her sake, since he's done a lot to help her. Suddenly, a mocking voice asks if she's trying to win him over. With Fu Jae, he turns pale instantly, looking frightened at the girl who just arrived. The bully girl steps closer, saying that she's trying everything she can. Young Suk immediately turns serious, glancing sideways with an angry expression. The leader of the bully girls and her two followers stare at him defiantly. With a lollipop in her mouth, she congratulates him and asks if she can talk to him for a moment surprised. He stays silent, wondering what the hell this girl wants with him. He tries to remember her, thinking she looks familiar, but can't recall from where. At that moment, Jae, he recognizes the bully and shouts her name. Yibun Young, surprising Young Shok. He then asks if her name is Choi Yin-jong, and she gets irritated that he didn't know. With a hand on his face, he complains that she's a pain in the ass, and that he can't believe they study at the same school. Eun-jong becomes furious at what he says, tells him to shut up, and glares at him with hatred. He confronts her, asking if she's deaf and telling her to back off. Ignoring the girl, he turns to Jae-hee and calls her so. They can finally eat the bully. Leader bites her lip, enraged at being completely ignored by him. She provokes him, saying that he hangs around with a possessed girl, but doesn't like her confused. Young Suk asks what this possessed nonsense is about, thinking it's ridiculous. Yoon-jong reveals that Jae-hee's mother is a shaman, and that the girl ran away from home, with her eyes filled with tears. Jae-hee is devastated at having her secret exposed to everyone. A flashback shows him, asking why she didn't want to go home earlier. Back in the present, he's shocked, finally understanding the reason for her behavior. Yoon-jong finishes by saying that possessed girls can't stand being without a man nearby. Before she can finish her sentence, a sharp, slapping sound echoes through the empty classroom. He slaps Eun-young across the face, leaving her completely stunned by the blow. The other students watching the scene are left open-mouthed, shocked by his action. With her hand on her reddened face, she asks in disbelief if he really dared to hit her. He then replies that a ghost would be better than a thug like her, who's beyond saving furious. Eun-jong lunges at him screaming, calling him a bastard, but he's faster and grabs her wrist tightly, stopping the attack midair. She struggles and screams that she'll kill him, but he holds her firmly, saying he's not crazy. Desperate, she shouts, asking if he has any idea who he's messing with. He then reveals that he does, mentioning that her father is a gangster from a Tiger Skull gang. With a smug smile, she tells him to kneel and beg for forgiveness right now. But Young Seok just laughs and flicks her face with his finger, finding the threat hilarious. He steps closer and warns that she messed with the wrong guy, frightening the girl. And he starts shouting so everyone can hear, declaring himself the strongest in the school. Holding her arm, he declares that from today on, Yoon-jong is an official whore. Jae-hee is completely stunned, staring at him in disbelief at what she just heard. All the other students also freeze, shocked by the declaration of war. Eun-jong stares at him wide-eyed, as he warns that he'll kill anyone who associates with her. Later on, the two sit on a bench, and Jae-hee asks if what he did was really right. She says she thinks he was a bit too harsh. With Eun-jong earlier hearing that, a vein of anger pops on Young Suk's forehead, showing his irritation. He squeezes her cheeks and shouts, asking why the hell she's worrying about that girl. With a serious look, he stays silent for a moment, and then asks if it was her. He then confirms that Eun-jong is the bastard who bullied her back in middle school. The girl tries to explain that it wasn't always like that, but he cuts her off immediately. He says she doesn't understand, because Eun-jong is worse than young Ji-I, a spoiled delinquent with a crooked smile. He says that either way, all of that ends starting today. He then points to himself and says that this oppa will teach that girl a lesson. Jae-hee is left speechless, just staring at him, with her face completely flushed and surprised. Suddenly, she starts laughing and he asks what's so funny, not understanding anything. He gets all irritated and embarrassed, complaining that he was way too nice to her. She asks if he isn't afraid of Yeonjong's father, but he tells her not to worry about that. He gets up to go to class, but Jae-hee insists, wanting to know if he'll really be okay. With her eyes filled with tears, she finally asks about what Eun-jong said about her mother. He looks down at her and asks, so it's showing that he doesn't care in the slightest. He says that being a shaman isn't a crime, but she replies that everyone says she'll be possessed. Hearing that, he moves closer to her on the bench, staring straight into her eyes. Suddenly, he startles her and asks what it was that he told her. Before crouching in front of her, he reminds her that he promised to protect her from everything and everyone. He tells her to stop talking nonsense, or next time, he'll give her 100 flicks on the forehead. With her face red, she quietly thanks him, feeling more relieved by his words. He gets up to leave, but she calls him back, asking him to wait a little longer. Embarrassed, she asks if she can ask just one more favor. Making him curious, the scene shifts to the rooftop, where someone demands that he apologize for his actions. He's completely confused by the request, not understanding what's going on there. It's revealed to be Yun-jong, who orders him to cancel the announcement he made in class. He finds the situation ridiculous, but she screams that she'll call her father right now. With an air of superiority, she threatens him, saying her father's gang will invade the school. She warns him to think carefully, saying he can't go up against a gang, and that he will suffer. With a furious smile, he dares her to try, cursing the girl without mercy. Suddenly, he punches the wall beside her with force, cracking it completely from the impact. Crying in fear, she asks if he's gone crazy, and if he really plans to face a gang. He lets out a small laugh, and says that this whole gang story is complete nonsense with a malicious smile. He reveals that her father is practically an expelled member of the group. Hearing that, her eyes widen, completely shocked by his revelation. He continues saying that her father is at the very bottom of the hierarchy, and a debt-ridden alcoholic. Stuttering, she asks how he knows all of those secret details. He then threatens to tell everyone that her father is trash, and she screams for him to shut up. Confused, she asks why he's being so cruel to her. She then asks if he's dating Jae-hee, and if she was the one who asked him to do this. He calls her pathetic, saying she has no idea what that idiot actually said. A flashback reveals that Jae-hee's favor was for him to forgive Eun-jong. Just this once enraged, he yells at her, asking if she's an idiot for wanting to forgive her own bully. She explains that Yun-jong must have her own problems, too, just like she does with her mother. With a suspicious look, he asks what proof she has to think something like that. He says that up until middle school. Eun-jong was much more cheerful and active than now, but suddenly she became gloomy and started hanging around bad people. Changing completely, that's why. She wants to give Eun-jong a chance to return to how she used to be and become friends again back on the rooftop. He grits his teeth in anger, thinking her attitude is pure stupidity. He then grabs Eun-jong's arm, warning her that even if he forgives her, he won't with an aura of fury. He says that someone with a rotten personality like hers needs to be beaten. He steps closer, and she asks what he's going to do, but he ignores her and keeps walking. With a malicious smile, he asks what she's going to do, now that she has no one to help her. He raises his hand and warns that the slap from earlier was just a taste of what's coming. Desperate, she begs him not to hit her, tears streaming down her face. A flashback shows the girl's father raising his hand at her in a threatening way. She curls up on the floor, screaming for her father not to hit her, and admitting she did something wrong. Seeing the scene, Young Seo-yuk's eyes widen, completely shocked by what he sees. He stops what he was doing and just stares at her, starting to break into a cold sweat. Kneeling on the ground, he asks if she grew up being beaten by her own father. Everything begins on yet another normal day of classes at a Korean high school, but the atmosphere in the classroom is already heavy, with the students looking quite scared. The reason is Oh Young-sayok, who arrives wearing a terrible expression and clearly not in the mood for friends. Two classmates whisper, guessing that his bad mood is because of Jae-hee, but he hears everything and tells them to shut up, since they're getting on his nerves. In his thoughts, all he can feel is guilt over something that happened. The scene then shows Choi Yun-jong crying in despair. Completely devastated, Young-suk looks thoughtful, admitting to himself, but he can't stop thinking about it. At that moment, he remembers someone, wondering what Yun-jong might have done. Elsewhere, Yoon and Ho hears from classmate that someone seems to be sick. He's surprised to learn that it's Choi Yun-jong. Just as Young-sok arrives, Young-sok joins the conversation, but the girl thinks it's just an excuse not to go to class. She then tries to explain that Yun-jong has always been kind of sickly, leaving Young-sok confused. Apparently, the girl has suffered from anemia since she was little and misses school often because of it. But Young-sok doesn't believe it, thinking it's impossible for a bully to have a condition like that. He gets upset, asking if the reason the girl is sick is because of him. Angry, Young-sok shouts that it's not his problem and walks away, leaving the classmate behind. In his thoughts, he wonders why she's defending that girl so eagerly. At that moment, a memory comes to his mind of a girl begging for his help. He tries to convince himself that it wasn't his fault, because that didn't even happen in this life. Suddenly, a celestial voice questions him, asking if his regret is really that weak. Young-sok freezes, breaking into a cold sweat, and wondering if the one who spoke was an angel. His classmates are confused by his reaction, and ask if he's okay. He brushes it off, but he's certain he wasn't imagining things, and that the voice was real. With that, he realizes the angel has been watching him throughout this second life. The goal was to test whether he was truly repentant for his past mistakes. but Young Sayok snaps, shouting that he doesn't care about any angel, and that the girl deserved it. He declares that this time he won't care at all, and that he'll do everything differently. Even saying all that, he ends up heading toward a very poor neighborhood. In the end, he finds himself holding a piece of paper with Choi Yoon-jong's address, unable to believe it arriving at the place. He comes across a very humble house that looks almost abandoned. On the wall, an improvised nameplate shows the name Choi Dong-sayok. Young Sayok checks the paper in his hand and confirms that he's at the right address. He thinks to himself that she lives in a pretty, rundown place, but that it's none of his business. Suddenly, the front door bursts open with a loud, abrupt noise. A blond man, who seems to be her father, appears completely drunk and staggering. Without flinching, Young Sayok asks if this is Choi Yoon-jong's house. The man gets furious at the question and shouts that it's his house, hurling insults at the boy. Seeing the man walk away, Young Suk realizes he really did come to the right place. He decides to call out for her, shouting over the roof, asking if Choi Yoon-jong is home. Looking through a crack, he mutters that she's probably gone out to have fun, but then he stops as you can hear someone panting, with very weak breathing. The scene reveals Yoon-jong on the floor sweating, injured and looking very unwell. She turns in fright and freezes when she realizes it's Jong-suk standing there. She screams at him to go away, while he thinks that judging by this, she's doing just fine. He tries to say that he didn't come there because he wanted to, but suddenly stops speaking. At that moment, Yoon-jong simply collapses unconscious on the floor, her body covered in bruises. Desperate, he rushes to her side, begging her to wake up and come to. He then realizes the situation is far more serious than he had imagined. The girl's body is covered in marks, showing just how badly she was beaten. Furious at the sight, he stands up and shouts, asking who the bastard responsible was. Her father then appears holding a bottle and yelling about who gave him permission to enter. Without thinking twice, Young Sayok lunges forward with a punch aimed at the man. The blow lands squarely on the old man's face, giving him no time to react. The father staggers backward, feeling the force of the punch he just took, enraged. The man shouts that he'll kill Young Suk and charges at him with everything he has. But Young Suk is faster, and the old man doesn't even see what's coming. Instead of a punch, he takes a powerful knee strike right to the middle of his face. Falling on the ground, the father hears Young Suk say that his daughter is suffering, while he does nothing but drink. He finishes his rant, saying that trash like him has no right to be a father. Young Suk turns back to the girl, letting out a worried sigh at her condition. He lifts Yoon Young into his arms, realizing how serious it is, and cursing the whole situation. At that moment, he decides he needs to take her to a hospital as fast as possible, but just as he's about to leave, a mysterious voice stops him, mocking his sense of urgency. Young Suk's eye twitches, showing he didn't like the joke at all. Then Jong Sung-soo is standing there, simply observing the entire scene. He gives a small smile and says that this isn't the first time they've met. Young Sayok freezes in shock as he recognizes the man called Jong Sung-soo. That's when it's explained that both of them belong to the Tiger Skull Gang, though they hold different positions. Seeing the whole situation, Jun-suk starts to understand what might be going on. Sung-soo looks at the girl's father, who is still lying on the ground after the beating. He questions Jun-suk, saying that he broke into someone else's house to take their daughter. With a furious look, he asks if Young Sok knows who the man he punched really is. But Young Sok doesn't flinch, replying that the guy is a trash gangster and a terrible father. He wonders if he's about to get dragged into yet another fight, which would be a pain. Sung-soo gets irritated by the boy's audacity, but something catches his attention. He notices that the girl in Young Sayok's arms looks very unwell and is breathing with difficulty. Suddenly, he surprises everyone and tells Young Sayok to leave, saying this won't end well. He tells him to take the girl to the hospital and that he'll take care of the old man. In the meantime, Young Sayok feels a bit suspicious, but nods in agreement and decides to go along with it. He leaves with the girl while Sung-soo stays behind, watching the scene unfold. He's impressed, wondering how a mere student managed to take down a gangster like that. The scene then shifts, cutting straight to a hospital late at night. Inside, we see Yoon-jong already receiving an 4-drip to recover. A nurse explains her condition to Young Sayok, who listens carefully. She says that for now, the girl will be fine, since she's already received an iron injection. However, she also explains that her system is weak and malnourished, so she needs care. Young Suk remains silent, processing everything and starting to recall things from his past. The scene takes us into a flashback where the former Sampo gang is celebrating a victory. Everyone is happy, as they've just taken control of the Tiger Skull Gang. At that time, Young Sok was the gang's main enforcer. The most feared one. He was there bragging telling everyone that he had taken down Jang Sung-soo. Suddenly, someone grabs his arm in the middle of the party. Catching him off guard, it was Eun-jong, who introduced herself and asked if he remembered her from school. But he was extremely rude, pointing at her and asking who that woman even was. It's explained that she had been sold to the gang because her father died owing money in the past. She begged him to get her out of there, saying she'd do anything in return. But the Young-suk of that time only looked at her with pure contempt and anger. He shoved her violently, not caring at all about her desperate plea. Then he shouted, asking why he should help a bar girl like her. He said he didn't remember her from school, leaving Eun-jong completely devastated. He then called the place's manager, who showed up immediately, terrified of him. Young-suk ordered that she be forced to work every day, serving the gang members. After that, he left saying his mood had been ruined, while she cried behind him. Back in the present, he thinks he never heard from her again, and assumed she had died looking at her now. He wonders if she would go through all of that again, if he became a gangster once more. The nurse pulls him out of his thoughts, asking how he plans to pay for the treatment. That's when Jang Sung-soo appears, saying that the hospital bill has already been paid. He asks how she's doing, and says he knows the city like the back of his hand. Young Sayok asks about her father, but Sung-soo cuts him off, saying the guy is trash. Sung-soo sighs, saying he still has to take care of the man, since he's family after all. Young-sok reflects on it, knowing the father is garbage. Yet the gang boss is still dealing with him. Sung-soo then tries to grab Young-sok's wrist to ask his name, but Young-sok dodges with his hand still in the air. The gangster prepares to do what he had in mind. From the start, out of nowhere, he slaps Young-sok hard, saying he's going to teach him a lesson. The protagonist is left stunned, completely shocked by the sudden attack. He stumbles backward, still unable to believe what just happened. Inside the hospital, angry, Young-sok turns around and asks if that's all he's got to show. Young-soo is surprised by the reaction, realizing the boy isn't afraid but holding back rage. He starts laughing, saying he likes the kid, and grabs him, making Young-sok furious from afar. The nurse shouts, asking what his relationship is with Eun-jong and the other girl. Sung-soo ignores her and tells Young-sok to take care of Eun-jong, saying her situation is tragic. He then waves goodbye, calling the boy by his full name. Oh Young-sok freezes, eyes wide open, not understanding how he knew his name, then hits him. He's wearing his school uniform with his name tag. Young-sok stares into nothingness, still thinking about everything that happened with that strange gangster. He concludes that Sung-soo is better than he seemed, but deep down, still a criminal. Oh Young-sayok walks alone through the streets, his mind racing, looking up at the sky. He realizes that now, he's sure this second life has a purpose. He remembers promising an angel that he would live normally, without killing anyone with that. He understands that the angel is making him reunite with everyone he wronged in the past. He wonders if that's what the angel wants, since he's still very hot-tempered. Standing still, he faces the sun and admits that his fists still act. Before he can think tired, he lets out a sigh and says to himself that he's dying for a cigarette. But instead he pulls a lollipop from his pocket, showing that he's truly trying to change. He then tells the angel that, since he's been given a new life, he'll do things his own way. But he shouts that all he has are his fists and his mouth to get by. He declares with all his strength that he'll live virtuously in his own way. And that's final. Suddenly, a voice says it will keep watching him, because it seems he hasn't changed at all. The story begins by showing a simple neighborhood house, where the day is already starting. Inside, Oh Young-suk gets ready for school, tying his shoelaces as he stands up. He's surprised to see his father and asks why he didn't go to work. His father complains that his shoulder hurts, and Young-suk immediately tells him to go see a doctor. But the old man says it's not necessary, that he'll be fine after resting for a bit. Worried, Young-suk then suggests quitting school to go work and earn money. In response, his father slaps him hard on the head. In anger, he shouts that his son isn't stupid, telling him to stop talking nonsense and go study. Then he asks if Young-suk has been fighting again, but the boy immediately denies it. Young-suk tries to hide it, but his father insists, asking if he got into trouble with anything. Seeing he's about to be late, he runs out shouting that he's leaving. Walking down the street, he complains to himself, thinking about how his father doesn't understand his effort. He then remembers the girl, Choi Eun-jong, and wonders if she's doing better. He even imagines her thanking him for taking care of her the day before, feeling very pleased with himself. With these thoughts, he finally arrives at the entrance of his school, Sampo High, in the classroom. Oh Young-sayok is shocked by what he hears. He sees Choi Eun-jong lying on her desk and shouts to get her attention. Then, he asks a classmate how long she has been like that, and the girl explains. Young-sok goes to her desk and asks if she has nothing to say to him. But the response he gets is a firm get lost. Leaving him speechless, she repeats it angrily, telling him to stop interfering in her life and just go away. The boy is furious at the rudeness, unable to believe what's happening. Meanwhile, Yoon-jong continues lying there, trembling with anger or maybe fear. Fed up, he says he expected this from a delinquent, and that she can do whatever she wants. He then turns to leave, wondering why he even tried to help. In her thoughts, Yoon-jong curses Young-sok with all her strength. As he walks away, she believes her life at school is over, since no one has ever challenged her before. And the worst part is that he saw her in that pitiful state, and now could use it against her. Suddenly, she hears someone calling her name, pulling her out of her thoughts. It's two classmates who ask if she's okay, since they heard she was sick. Eun-young asks fearfully if they will still be her friends, and they confirm immediately. The girls then invite her to get some air on the terrace, and she ends up agreeing. The scene shifts, showing the school terrace, a place that seems peaceful. Up there, she thinks everything is still fine, as she has a plan in mind. She plans to lure some guys to take revenge on Young-sok at the first opportunity, but her friends exchange a strange look, with expressions that are anything but friendly. Suddenly, someone blocks the terrace door with a piece of wood. Yoon-jong hears the noise and turns, not understanding what's happening. Then she receives a slap in the face with full force. Screaming in pain, she falls to the ground, and the attacker says with a smile that his hand slipped, and then 3 delinquents appear, calling her a gangster's daughter. The girl panics, realizing they are the bullies from other classrooms. Desperate, she tries to threaten them, saying her father will take revenge, but the leader mocks her, saying her lie was exposed since she already got beaten. Yoon-jong is completely shocked, speechless, realizing she fell into a trap. She asks what they want, and the leader says she will be punished for lying. He even mocks her, saying that since Young-suk was going to hit her, it wouldn't be a problem, with a malicious smile. He finishes by saying they can do whatever they want, leaving her in panic, desperate. She cries out for help from her friends, who just stand there watching. They then say they're sorry, but now they need to choose the right side. One of them even blames her, saying that lying was the first mistake. Seeing the guys approaching, Eun-jong tries to defend herself, saying she didn't want to lie. She just didn't want her family life exposed. Wanted to live in peace, crying a lot. She laments as she just wanted a space without men, and without fear, and in a scream of desperation. She wonders how things got to this point, but suddenly the door is kicked open, startling the leader of the group. They are all confused, since they were sure the door was securely locked. And who appears is Young-sok, who breaks the lock and asks why she makes things so difficult. With tears in her eyes, the girl looks at him, a mix of surprise and relief on her face. The 2 traitorous classmates are completely shocked, unable to believe he really showed up. The bullies are also terrified, stammering Young-suk's name out of sheer fear, but he, filled with pure rage, tells those jerks never to speak his name again. Jungkook steps forward and sarcastically tells them to continue with what they were doing. He spreads his arms with a smile, asking what they're all doing huddled together. The group leader tries to explain nervously, saying it wasn't a big deal. Seeing the scene, Eun-jong looks at her savior, her heart racing. The bully is furious at his audacity, gritting his teeth and cursing him. But Young-seok just glares at him with contempt, while the other asks if he's joking. The guy then explodes, revealing that it was Young-seok himself who had ordered them to torment her. Before he can finish, Young-suk's hand flies toward him. Swiftly, he grabs the leader by the neck with full force, leaving the guy struggling to breathe, lifting the bully into the air. He shouts, calling him a cowardly, despicable hyena angrily. He asks if they thought he isolated her, so they could do whatever they wanted. Mercilessly, he throws the bully to the ground, and the man screams in pain from the impact. Young-sok then warns everyone that if anyone touches Choi Eun-young, he will kill them with that. They all run away terrified, afraid of what might happen. Alone with him, Eun-jong stays on the ground, not understanding anything that's happening. She then asks why he's acting this way, leaving him thoughtful, but she suddenly explodes in anger, shouting for him to leave and stop mocking her with contempt. He says he doesn't care about what happens to a girl like her. He says he only helped because of Jae-hee, who arrives asking if Eun-jong is okay. Surprised, Eun-jong looks at her, recognizing the girl she had humiliated so much before. The scene shows a flashback, where Eun-jong spread malicious rumors about Jae. Young-sok calls her pathetic, asking if she thinks everyone is like her. He reveals that Jae-hee always cared about her, despite everything that happened. Eun-jong is shocked, processing the information that her former friend still cared. In a flashback, Jae-hee says she was hurt by her words days ago, but she explains that what hurt most was no longer being able to be friends like before. With her heart in her hands, Jae-hee promises to be braver and asks to be friends again. Upon hearing this, a tear begins to form in the corner of Yeon-jong's eye. She then starts crying for real, realizing what she's done up until now. And in that moment, she wonders what the hell she has been doing with her life. Jae, he consoles her, telling her not to cry, while Young-suk watches everything from a distance. He then thinks about all his problems, believing he has finally resolved the conflicts. Looking at the sky, he breathes a sigh of relief, thinking he will have peace. But little does he know, a few days later, the scene shifts to the Sampo gang headquarters. At night inside, a man screams in pain as he is brutally beaten by other members, fallen to the ground. He is kicked and beaten mercilessly, agonizing with each blow the attacker stops, and the victim begs for forgiveness from his boss. Completely battered, the boss looks at him with contempt and with a smile, questions the word forgive. The scene shows the man kneeling, utterly humiliated in front of the gang leader. We are introduced to the Sampo leader, who complains that the man lost an important deal. Desperate, the man begs to be spared, promising to make up for the loss. The boss smiles, saying he likes seeing such determination in a gangster. The man thanks him in relief, but the boss snaps his fingers, summoning a henchman. Then he hears the order to turn him into a corpse and disappear with his organs sold to make money. Desperate, the man is dragged away while screaming for the boss, who calls him useless. The boss complains to his right-hand man, saying there's nothing to be done with people like that. And the gang commander, Yeom Ji-hwan, simply agrees with his leader's opinion. The boss laments not having anyone competent and asks if Ji-hwan knows anyone useful out there. To his surprise, the commander says he knows someone and hands him a photo. The image shows Oh Young-seok on the street with a serious and imposing expression. The boss gets irritated upon seeing that he's a student in uniform, and Ji-hwan explains who he is. He says the boy defeated the former school boss and took control of everything. The boss gets even angrier, remembering that the former boss used to sell his merchandise. Outraged, he yells at Ji-hwan, asking if he wants him to recruit a brat. He then humiliates his commander, questioning if that's all he can manage. But Ji-hwan plays the final card, saying that Jong Sung-soo is watching this boy. Ji-hwan reveals that Young-suk was seen talking with Jong Sung-soo a few days ago. The boss asks if the information is reliable, and the commander confirms they seem close. He then begins to consider whether the rival gang is training the boy to become a commander. With an evil smile, he realizes he can use this situation to his advantage. The boss looks at the photo and gives the final order for his men to bring the boy. The scene shows the school courtyard, with students arriving for another normal day. Inside the hallways, groups of students gather, catching up with each other. We see two girls gossiping animatedly, one sharing a secret with the other. Then the pink-haired girl greets a senior passing by, showing a lot of respect soon. Oh Young-seok walks down the hallway, and everyone greets him with a smile. He thinks that it's been 2 weeks since he became the boss, bringing unprecedented peace to the school. It is explained that the reason is that he banned theft and any form of bullying, of course. At first, some delinquents complained and did not like the idea at all, but after his persuasion, the guys who opposed him disappeared quickly. Suddenly, Jae, he calls him, and he turns to see who it is. Recognizing her, she greets him cheerfully, while Choi and Jong stand shyly beside her. He thinks that Jae, he looks much happier after changing her hairstyle. He also notices that Eun-jong now walks with her, looking cute and embarrassed. Tishan Yi Arivis, and comments that he's not late today. She chuckles, and he notices that she no longer seems uncomfortable around him. He thinks that ever since he beat Kang Yong-ji, that guy never appeared again. But his only problem at the moment is a guy greeting him in an exaggerated manner. The guy bows deeply, wishing him a good morning and a great day. Young-suk gets annoyed and asks why he's calling him Hyungnim. The boy smiles and replies, saying that once a boss, always a boss, which irritates Young-suk. The scene shows the empty hallway, while Young-seok complains about the ridiculousness. He remembers that this guy was just a trashy thug who attacked him when he was following Kang Yong-ji. So he tells the boy to stop clinging and disappear, saying he no longer wants to be a delinquent. But the boy insists, saying that's exactly why he wants to serve by his side. He explains that he was very impressed with Young-suk's power during their fight, and he was even more shocked when Young-suk ended delinquency instead of forming a gang. That's when he realized that the truly strong one doesn't need power. Young-suk doesn't believe a word, thinking all that nonsense is a big lie. Tired, he decides to let it go, and the boy celebrates that he will serve him forever. Suddenly, someone outside the building starts shouting Young-suk's name. At the school exit, Jae, he calls him to eat, but he says he needs to go cook for his father. Then that follower of his shows up, asking to carry his backpack in a strange way. Annoyed, Young-suk almost hands over the bag, but shouts that the idea of going together is ridiculous. The guy then says he wants to go along, to know where he lives, making Young-suk even more irritated. He tells the boy to stop talking nonsense. But before he finishes the sentence, something catches his attention. Turning the corner, he sees two men in suits standing, blocking the passage in an alley. The guys look intimidating and don't seem to be there by chance. His follower complains that they are in the way, but Young-seok senses trouble. Suddenly a third person appears, shouting Young-seok's name angrily. It's Kim Suk-hyun holding a bat, accusing him of enjoying being the strongest. Young-suk recognizes him immediately. Kim Suk-hyun prepares to attack, shouting that he got beaten badly the last time they met. But suddenly one of the henchmen lands a powerful punch, silencing the blonde immediately. He gets scolded by his partner, who tells him to stop acting like a follower and fight properly. Then the man asks which of the two is the target, and the blonde points to the tall redhead. One of the men approaches and says, "It's a pleasure to meet Oh Young-sok." The boy tenses immediately, not understanding what kind of situation this is. The man then says that their boss wants to see him and tells him to come along. Jun Seo panics, as it makes no sense for the Sampo gang to be after him. He knows he's in deep trouble because if they take him, things will get very bad. Seeing his hesitation, the gangster asks why he isn't responding, while Young-sok hatches a plan. But the problem is that his stupid follower is right next to him. Complicating everything, he clenches his fist annoyed, thinking he can't abandon the guy and just run. So he decides to let it go, since it's not the time to worry about others. The gangster smirks, thinking the boy is the laziest he has ever seen. Seeing that he won't obey, the man warns that he's going to need a beating. But Young-sok moves forward, and when the man prepares to retaliate, there's a surprise instead of a punch. The boy throws a handful of coins at him. The gangster is confused, wondering what those flying objects are. The coins hit him directly, distracting him and giving Young-sok an opening, while the gangster shields himself from the coins. The blonde is shocked, not understanding anything. Young-sok takes advantage of the gap to jump over and goes straight toward the other man. He lands a precise kick to the blonde's face, who falls to the ground immediately. With the path clear, he thinks the plan worked, and now he just needs to escape. But before he can run, the other henchman shouts, telling him to stop right there. The man grits his teeth in anger, saying they were going to take him peacefully at the boss's request, and to make it worse, he grabs the follower, threatening to break all his limbs if Young-sok runs. The boy panics and calls for his boss, tears filling his eyes seeing the scene. Young-sok gets furious and curses the bastard for his cowardice. He thinks he can't be caught because he knows something terrible will happen to him. The leader of the guys gives a cynical smile, asking him to come in peace and without making a sound. But his friend screams, begging Young Seo to run and leave him behind. Annoyed, the brute strikes him in the stomach, telling the boy to shut up immediately. The man then taunts Young Seo, asking if he's really going to abandon his friend there. Young Seo looks back, his face a mixture of pure fury and hesitation. Suddenly he turns and runs, making the attackers shout to catch him. Their leader gets angry, knowing it will be a problem if they let the kid escape. In rage, he punches his friend square in the face, making him scream in pain. He then grabs him by the collar, shouting and asking what he's going to do. Now that the other one ran, the boy, terrified, asks who they are and why they're doing this to him. With a malicious smile, the man says he'll tell him, but hopes he won't cry afterward. Suddenly footsteps are heard, and someone approaches at high speed. The attacker reveals that they messed with the Sampo gang, leaving the boy terrified by the news. Meanwhile, Young-sok stops running, panting and exhausted from all the chasing. The man then says that since his friend ran, they'll fulfill their promise of breaking his limbs. He starts laughing, saying it's too late to regret. But Young-sok comes running back in the blink of an eye. The protagonist lands a knee to the attacker's back, sending him sprawling backward. His friend is shocked, and Young-sok complains, asking him to decide how he'll address him. He then shouts for his friend to stop standing there and run and not forget to call the police. But the other henchmen appear, and Young-sok says they need to stop at least one of them. The boy insists they run together, but ends up getting punched in the head for worrying. Then Jun-silk introduces himself as the strongest man in Sampo High, saying they're nothing. With that said, he charges at the enemies, preparing for the counter attack with a powerful kick. He hits one of the henchmen square in the jaw, sending him flying. He tells his friend to run and trust him, because a weakling would only get in the way of the fight. Shocked by the words, his friend freezes. Tears filling his eyes, the boy runs off, shouting that he's calling the police and asking his friend to hang in there. Young Seo Yuk gets irritated because he only asked him to do one thing. He then prepares himself, wondering if he should do another good deed that day. The scene changes, showing his friend running desperately through the narrow city streets. He vows to himself that he will hold on, and that he will definitely be able to save young Sayok. But suddenly he stops, upon seeing a mysterious figure standing right in front of him. He can't believe it, wondering if that person is also one of the enemies. A subtle, threatening smile appears on the mysterious man's face. Back in the fight, Young Suk lands a powerful punch directly on the eye of one of the henchmen. He stands there panting, while the two men groan in pain on the ground. Relieved, he thinks that somehow, it seems he managed to win the fight. He then wonders what the Sampo gang wanted with a simple high school student, but a voice answers, saying it's because he isn't an ordinary student. The man appears dragging his friend, and saying that he understands the interest of the Tiger Skull clan. Young Sok is shocked to see his friend unconscious, grinding his teeth in pure rage. Furious, Young Sok charges forward shouting, wanting to know who he is, and demanding he release his friend. The man looks at him mockingly, asking if that's all he has to show. The question shocks him, but he doesn't stop, and continues advancing on the enemy. But the man counterattacks easily, landing a powerful elbow right on his face. He can't believe he was countered, feeling the full impact of the blow. He doubles over in pain, and the man says he's strong. But that's all he has. Enraged, Young Sok yells at him to shut up, and lunges forward with another punch. But the man dodges again, explaining that it's too easy to predict his attacks that way. Then he lands a quick strike to Young Sok's neck, making him scream in pain from the impact. He grabs his face, and Young Sayok feels humiliated, being treated like a child. Ruthlessly, the man slams his head into the ground with all the force he has. The enemy watches him on the ground, thinking where a monster like him could have come from. He then says that without technique, their fight is just a simple delinquent brawl. Young Sok widens his eyes, because the way he speaks reminds him of something. Then it clicks he is Yam Ki-hwan, the strongest in Incheon and his former instructor. He widens his eyes in shock, wondering how he hadn't realized it before. The realization finally hits him. It was Yam Ki-hwan, his former fighting instructor. The scene then shifts to the past. For the first time, he met him during a gang war. In the middle of the fight, a man screamed in pain as chaos consumed the place. But amidst the confusion, Yam Ki-hwan was the only one, walking calmly through it all. Suddenly, one of the enemies lunges at him, shouting with pure rage. The man then dodges the punch with impressive ease, barely moving with a single swift punch. He humiliates his opponent effortlessly. He grabs the guy by the collar, staring at him with a cold, calculating gaze. Another enemy appears from behind with a club, yelling that he'll finish him. But Young Ki-hwan turns his body, and the man with the club freezes, unable to believe what just happened. He charges forward with a punch. He tells everyone to go all out, calling those bastards to fight without fear. He compares them to moths flying into a flame, before taking them all down alone. In his memory, he saw that the master's movements were fluid, like water with no wasted motion. Watching that man take down 12 guys alone, he was amazed for the first time in his life. The scene then returns to training, where he was thrown to the ground with force. Screaming in pain, his master called him pathetic, asking how many times he'd have to repeat the same thing. He then taught him not to attack head-on, without thinking, especially if the enemy was stronger. But Young Sok would get frustrated, shouting that he wanted to be king of the world by fighting fairly at that. The master said it seemed he didn't even understand the basics of fighting. The boy was completely confused, not grasping what he meant. With that scolding, impatient Yom Ki-hwan simply stepped on his chest, making him scream in pain on the ground. He then yelled that there's no such thing as fair fights for a gangster, calling the boy an idiot, but Young Sok retorted, saying that that kind of thinking was for losers. The master then advised him to focus only on victory, as it was the only way for a weakling to survive. Back in the present, he asks if the boy finally understood the difference in their levels. Fan Young-suk realizes that Yum Ki-hwan had been a monster from the very beginning. He then panics, unable to believe he'd encountered this guy so early. He thinks he can't beat him, because no one wins against this guy one-on-one. So he surrenders, saying he'll follow him without causing trouble, which pleases the master, but secretly. He grabbed a handful of sand, showing that he has a plan in mind. The master is confused, as what the boy said differs from what he taught him. Young Sayok throws the sand, shouting that he will focus only on winning, no matter the method. The sand hits Young Ki-hwan square in the eyes, blinding him for a moment. With the enemy's guard down, the boy prepares to attack while he can't see. He lunges with a punch, ready to hit the enemy with all his strength. But his fist is stopped easily, and the master admits it wasn't a bad idea. He says the strategy of blinding and striking by surprise was decent, but there's a catch. with a threatening look. He warns that the trick doesn't work on everyone. Young-suk panics, realizing his plan failed, and that this might be the end for him. But suddenly a girl turns on the street, as if she sensed something strange. Choi Eun-jong asks what happened, wanted to know if something went wrong with her. She looks embarrassed, replying that it's nothing and that everything is fine. Far away Sim-jae, he feels a strange anxiety, hoping nothing happened to him. She thinks of Young-sayok, who at that moment was on the ground, completely defeated slowly. He regains consciousness hearing voices with someone, surprised that he knocked down 4 guys. His vision slowly focuses, and one of the men realizes he has finally woken up. Standing in front of him are Young Ki-hwan, and an older man staring at him seriously. He widens his eyes in anger, shouting the name of his former instructor. The gang leader laughs, asking how much he got beaten, and Young Ki-hwan says he just taught him a lesson. Tied to a chair, Young-suk looks around, trying to figure out where he is. The older man approaches, greeting him with a sinister smile on his face. He says he heard many rumors, and just wanted to see the boy's face in person. But Young-suk interrupts him, already knowing that this was Jo Bong-cheol. The Sampo gang's leader. The realization hits him, and he understands that he has been dragged to the headquarters of his enemies. He laments being dragged there, surrounded by the shadows of that gang. Now he was right in the Sampo headquarters, the #1 gang in Incheon. The boss approaches with mockery, saying he's much more handsome than he imagined. He then taunts him, asking if a pretty face could survive the life of a gangster. With a furious look, the boss curses him, calling our hero a complete idiot. But suddenly the man flinches, as if he had been struck out of nowhere in his mind. Young-suk attacks him with a headbutt, shouting for him to die already. He thinks that if he weren't tied up, the story would definitely be very different. With a focused gaze, he recalls the reason he became famous and ended up dragged there. It was the countless fights he had fought because he didn't want to join any gang. He just wanted to be a good person. But fate had put him in this shitty situation. From a distance, Young Ki-hwan observes him silently, sensing something strange. He notices that the boy shows no fear, even while in the enemy's base. He recalls the boy's words about focusing only on winning, at any cost. Curious, he wonders if this really is just a normal student. Jung-sik remains silent for a moment, but then a mocking smile appears on his face. Suddenly he starts laughing loudly, leaving the 2 gangsters completely baffled. The boss asks what he's laughing at, but the boy responds that the situation is hilarious. He then says he understands why he was brought here, since he's a bit famous. But the funny part is seeing the Sampo boss scared of student tied up in his HQ. The provocation leaves the boss speechless, with a face that clearly didn't appreciate the joke. Young Ki-hwan even tries to intervene, but the boss begins laughing in a strange way. Then he bursts into a loud laugh, finding the boy very cocky and energetic. In a swift motion, he grabs the boy's hair with full force. With a threatening look, he asks if the kid is deliberately trying to provoke him. Young-suk suggests they talk after he's released, asking if the boss is scared. With anger rising, the boss clenches his fist tightly, staring at the boy seriously. But to everyone's surprise, he agrees to release him, which shocks Young Ki-hwan. His right-hand man tries to intervene, saying it's a trap, but the boss calls him by name with an aura of fury. He shouts, asking since when he asked for his opinion. Young Ki-hwan is irritated, but Young-suk thinks that despite his cleverness, he wouldn't go against the boss. He then focuses on his bound hands, planning what to do once they release him. His plan was to take Jo Bong-cheol as a hostage, as that was his only chance to escape. But he knew that if he did that, the gang would hunt him down and bury him forever. Putting that aside, he decides to focus on getting out. While the boss approaches, suddenly a huge noise draws everyone's attention, making the atmosphere tense. One of the henchmen runs in, screaming in panic that there's an emergency. He tries to warn that the Skull Tiger Clan guys are here, but it's too late. In an instant, the door is kicked open, and the man is thrown inside with full force. Young Ki-hwan looks at the body on the floor, saying the whole situation is a disappointment. 3 men then enter the room, and the leader asks if this is how they welcome guests. He calls Young Ki-hwan, who immediately recognizes him as Jang Sung-ju. Young-suk is shocked, not understanding why this guy is right in front of him. The Sampo boss gets angry, asking Jang Sung-ju if he's trying to start a war. But he responds that the great Sampo gang should be ashamed for kidnapping a boy. Sampo's henchmen get furious, shouting that they'll finish off that bastard. Immediately, Young Ki-hwan waits for the boss's orders, who after a moment tells him to take Young-sayok. Jang Sung-ju doesn't understand the decision, surprised by the rival's sudden order. But the boss looks at him with a smile, saying he won't stop them, and that they can take the boy. The other leader is suspicious, not expecting the Sampo boss to give in so easily. The scene then focuses on Young Seo's hands, which are finally freed from the ropes. With his hands now free, he adjusts himself and tells the other leader that they can go. But before leaving, the Sampo boss calls him with a look he knew very well. With a sinister smile, the boss says it was nice meeting him and hopes they'll see each other again. Jungkook responds that he highly doubts it, as he never wants to see his face again. The boss just chuckles, while the others prepare to leave. He watches the group walk away, thinking the situation was far more than he expected. Jang Sung-ju also reflects, as the fact he came to get the boy shows how important he was. With a smirk, the boss says, things will get more interesting from now on. Young Ki-hwan agrees, but remains wary about everything. He stays thoughtful, convinced that there's something very strange about Oh Young-seok. Night falls over the city, while a voice wonders what the hell is going on there. Then we see Oh Young-seo with some guys, questioning how they found him. In the middle of the alley, tired of the situation, he grabs the leader by the shoulder and demands a real explanation. The boy barely finishes speaking when he's grabbed by the neck. He is slammed against the wall by Young-seo. The man is furious at the audacity, shouting that they didn't save him for him to be ungrateful even while being suffocated. The young man doesn't lower his head and demands the guy let him go immediately. Suddenly, a louder voice interrupts the fight, shouting for both of them to stop. It was Young Sung-soo who reprimands his subordinate and promises to explain everything to the boy. The brute immediately bows, offering a formal apology to his boss. Sung-soo then begins to tell the story, mentioning the rivalry between two major gangs. The scene shows a flashback of the feud, with the two groups glaring at each other for years. He explains that he was patrolling the area because he had heard the rival gang, Sampo, was on the move. He then remembers seeing a specific boy, one with a prominent chin. Young-seok is shocked, realizing immediately that the man was talking about his friend. Desperate, he asks where his friend is, and Sung-soo reassures him, saying he's already been sent to the hospital. The scene shows the boy lying on the ground, badly hurt, calling out Young-seok's name. Sung-soo reveals that, even injured, his friend was looking for him, which irritates Young-seok. He puts a hand on the boy's shoulder and invites him to go to his territory. But the response is short and harsh, with Young-seok telling that idea to hell. He turns, saying he's not crazy enough to go to a gang's base. Then the boy asks to stop pretending to be friends, because he doesn't want to be noticed by rivals again. The henchman is annoyed by the audacity, but Sung-soo tells him to leave the boy alone. Alone in the alley, Young-seok walks away cursing, completely frustrated with the whole situation. He remembers a man questioning him, doubting he could survive in the life of a gangster. Stopping in the middle of the street, he fills with rage and clenches his arm tightly. The image of the gangster returns to his mind, saying goodbye in a very threatening way. Suddenly, the boy completely loses it and falls to the ground, unable to handle the pressure anymore. The scene focuses on the empty street as he wonders what to do and screams the name of an angel. Elsewhere, a man arrives home and announces that daddy has come for his daughter. Upon opening the door, he's surprised that his son hasn't arrived, since it's already very late. The man enters the house, feeling sharp pain in his shoulder and complaining to himself. He hears a noise from inside and becomes alert. Looking around in fear, he hides behind the wall, thinking there might be a thief invading his house. With a pot lid in hand, he rushes into the room, yelling at the damn intruder. But the man freezes, surprised to see who's inside. It's only Oh Young-seok, arranging some boxes amidst the huge mess in the room. The father asks about the mess, and the boy responds that he arrived just in time. He then tells his father to pack, because they need to leave the city immediately. The father grabs his son, confused and wanting to know what's going on. With a serious look, Young-seok stares at his father, showing that things are serious. The man notices his son's injuries, but tells him to forget about it and start packing. Desperate, he asks why they need to leave, as they have nowhere to go. Young-seok shouts that it doesn't matter, because the Sampo gang is after them. The father is shocked, and the boy tells him to hurry and pack immediately. Young-seok is frantic, blaming himself for the situation, and thinking they need to escape. The father continues standing, watching him while Young-seok thinks of what to do. Irritated, the boy shouts for his father to hurry, not noticing the pot flying toward him. And with that, the father hits his son on the head with the pot. The boy staggers in disbelief, asking what the hell his father was doing. The old man responds that he's educating his crazy son, and tells him to sleep a little now. He stands there looking at his son on the ground, and cursing the whole situation. The boy's eyes widen in pure shock, before he completely blacks out. The scene shifts to the next day, with Young-seok waking up with a terrible headache. He grumbles angrily at his father, but then notices a note left on the wall. In the note, the father says he has already spoken to the school and left food ready for him, but the boy is frustrated because his father didn't understand. that the problem was much bigger. Looking at the clock, he thinks that even if they left, they wouldn't know what to do. He sits on the floor, admitting that they have no money and no place to go. He knows staying there is dangerous, but with his mind racing, he doesn't know what to do. Suddenly a voice calls from outside, immediately putting the boy on alert. Someone bangs on the door forcefully, shouting that they already know everything, and demanding he opens up. Jun Seo looks at the shadow at the door, thinking the damn Sampo gang has already found him. Sweating, he grabs a wooden stick, not planning to go peacefully. The boy then prepares for a fight, determined not to be taken by those guys. Staring at the shadow, he promises himself that he cannot let this happen again. Outside, the man hesitates, wondering if the old man gave him the wrong address. He then searches under the plant pot, thinking the key should be nearby. And sure enough, he finds it, leaving Young Suk surprised that he knew the hiding spot. Wasting no time, the man inserts the key into the lock and starts turning it to enter. The door opens and Young Sok is already waiting, his stick raised and ready to strike. He shouts with all his strength, cursing the intruder as a bastard and shameless delinquent. The boy swings the stick down with full force, but the man dodges at the last second. Angrily, he spins his body and prepares another blow, shouting that the guy won't escape. But the man manages to block the attack and desperately asks the boy to stop. To protect himself, he shows a badge, which makes Young Suk stop immediately. The man breathes a sigh of relief, commenting ironically on the unfriendly reception. He introduces himself as a detective and invites him to go to the police station. For a conversation, Young Suk turns pale and speechless, stammering the word detective in disbelief. The scene cuts to Choi and Jong, who also seems shocked at the mention of a detective. She's nearby and wonders what he did for a detective to show up at his door frustrated. Shui Eun-young keeps her bait tightly, calling Young Sayok an idiot in her mind. The scene shifts to the police station, where the confusion is about to continue. Inside, Young Sayok observes everything with a tense look, feeling very uncomfortable in the place. He looks around, noticing the officers and even a cell nearby. In a corner, a man is already imprisoned, adding to the heavy atmosphere. The detective questions him, and Young Suk thinks how much he hates police stations. Even after reincarnating, the officer explains that it was his father who called. Because of the Sampo gang incident, the boy becomes irritated because besides Sampo, now he has to deal with the police. But deep down he thinks that despite everything, there's something more to this story. He recalls the fight and realizes that his father took him seriously, even without proof. The detective then gets straight to the point and asks what his relationship is with the gang. Before answering, some strange men pass by, one of them shoving him without ceremony. One of the officers calls another man, who responds very casually that he's coming. Young Suk glances sideways, perhaps recognizing the figure approaching him, and the detective, and out of nowhere, the man punches Young Suk full force in the head. Surprising everyone, the prisoner in the cell mocks him, asking what a kid like him is doing there. He continues provoking, but the detective gets annoyed and tells him to shut up and follow him even while being led away. The man continues mumbling and talking nonsense while moving away from the boy. At that moment, Young Suk calls the man back, who turns around not understanding what he wants. With hatred in his eyes, he tells the man to die and lands a punch right in the middle of his face. Without giving him a chance, the boy knocks him to the ground with full force, shocking the other officer. The man trembles on the floor, too scared to react to the boy's surprise attack. Young Sayok then approaches him, telling the man to repeat what he said, if he has the courage all battered. The man calls him crazy for hitting someone inside the police station, but the boy doesn't care and asks if he has anything else to say. Seeing that he doesn't, he raises his fist and tells the bastard to die. Once and for all, the detective interrupts, telling him to stop because they're not there to fight. Frustrated, the boy puts his hand on his face, admitting he let his anger get the better of him. The other officer scolds the prisoner for causing trouble again. In the station, the scene shifts outside the station, and the detective invites him for a coffee. The detective offers coffee, but Young Sok immediately refuses, saying he doesn't like the drink. The man takes a sip, commenting that the boy still doesn't understand the taste of adults. But Young Sok is tense from yesterday's fight, thinking he has no time for that. Tired of the delays, he says he'll leave now, leaving the officer surprised. He tries to downplay it, saying that the gang story is just his father's exaggeration. In his mind, he questions it, thinking he can handle all of this alone. The detective takes another sip of coffee, calmly considering the boy's excuse. But the officer throws a name on the table, saying his friend told a different story. The boy stops immediately, turning around in disbelief at what he heard. The detective then reveals that he knows everything, from the boy's name to the hospitalized friend. Angrily, he realizes the bastard already knew everything from the start of the conversation. Seeing that there's no way out, the officer calls him for a very serious talk. Back at the police station, the detective says he investigated thoroughly who Oh Young-seok really was. He lays out the facts on the table, saying he knows about the meeting with Sampo and his connection then. The officer asks him to tell in detail what really happened the previous day, but Young-seok pretends to be clueless and even challenges the man, asking if he has any proof. The detective studies him, finding the boy increasingly strange and different from other delinquents. He thinks about the boy's absurd strength and his connections, which don't match those of a normal student. He's definitely hiding something. So the detective asks if the Sampo gang threatened him. The question catches the boy off guard, and he reacts immediately with a frightened look. Angrily, he stands up and shouts for them to stop the nonsense, saying he's leaving. The officer says he can only help if he's honest, but the boy tells him to get a warrant. In his mind, he thinks the man knows nothing, and that he's just wasted his time there. But a mysterious voice emerges, asking if he really plans to run. From the whole situation, the boy turns around furious, questioning what the person just said. Suddenly, a radiant figure appears, making him scream and ask what it knows about him. His eyes widen in pure panic, as it seems he finally recognizes that person. The being of light appears, saying that it's disappointed with his current behavior. The boy explodes with rage at the rebuke, shouting for it to stop the nonsense. Desperate, he defends himself, saying he tried to live right, but had no choice. But the angel responds that this is a mistake, asking if he was really being good. Young-suk is left speechless, recalling the times he picked fights and threatened others, clenching his fist. He admits that he knows the kind of life he led, and that all he knows is how to fight. But he shouts that he tried not to become a gangster, and that he's trying to repent. He then blames the bastards from Sampo, while the angel silently observes him. Back at the police station, the angel says it understands, and that it cannot control his life. But the being of light warns that it came to give advice, telling him not to reject those who want to help. The angel's hand glows intensely, preparing to show a very clear example. And the example is none other than the detective, which leaves young SEO completely shocked. He can't believe it, saying that the man only wants to promote himself. But the angel reveals a secret. It's explained to us that the man risked his life to help him in the past, which seems crazy. Young-suk looks at the nameplate on the officer's desk, and upon reading the name, he panics. The scene cuts to a flashback on a rainy night. With hurried footsteps on the street, we see a younger Young-suk, filled with anger, cursing Ju Young-sung. He's running down the road, while a man yells at him to stop fleeing immediately. The man insists with all his might, shouting his name and ordering him to stop running. As a result, Oh Young-seok stumbles, but he quickly gets up, already cursing the man as a bastard. Ready for a fight, however, the fall badly injures his ankle, leaving him in immense pain with no way out. The officer finally catches up, saying he got the bastard and that the escape is over. Angry at the situation, he starts struggling, shouting to be released immediately. But Ju Young-sung grips his wrist tightly, not letting the boy escape at all. Then he applies an arm lock, immobilizing Young-suk, who screams in pain and rage. Young-suk threatens to kill him, but the officer calls him a pathetic bastard fearless. He then throws it in his face, asking if he's not ashamed to confront his deceased father. The words catch Young-suk by surprise, and he freezes, stopping his fight immediately. Ju Young-sung shouts that his father, worried until the end, and that he's a clumsy idiot. Oh Jung-sik asks, in surprise, how the officer knows his deceased father. Suddenly, a strong headlight illuminates the road, sending the officer into total panic. Ju Young-sung pushes him away, shouting for him to get out, but the boy complains about his leg. In desperation, he throws Oh Jun Seo aside. The vehicle hits the man directly, throwing him far away with a violent impact. From the ground, Jun Seo is frozen, completely shocked by what he just saw. He screams in pain and agony, while the officer calls his name desperately. Back in the present, Young-suk's eyes widen at the vivid memory. The detective snaps him out of the trance, asking why he's zoning out like that. But the boy doesn't listen, as he finally recalls everything. that happened that day. The memory shows a newspaper report about Ju Yong-sung's death in an accident. He looks at the nameplate on the desk, realizing the man in front of him is the same officer. Ju Yong-sung says he can leave, but to come back if he changes his mind about the conversation. But Young-sok interrupts him and decides to speak, leaving the detective very surprised. He then asks for help, saying he will tell everything about the gangs and what he knows. Meanwhile, the guard at the entrance of the police station shakes his head, looking very tired, but he quickly swallows hard when he sees Choi Yoon-young approaching the entrance. The officer asks if she needs help, but Choi Yoon-jong responds that it's nothing. From afar, she thinks about that bastard and the mess he caused to end up there. She gets annoyed at the situation, since he was the one who scolded her before all this. Back in the room, Ju Young-sung writes everything down, finally understanding what really happened. He then thanks Young Sayok for his cooperation, which was essential for the investigation. The boy thinks he told everything, from his connection with the gangs to the chase. But of course he left out the part about the angel, where he'd be sent straight to the asylum. The detective reads the report and says that even without proof, he can already begin investigating. Then he asks about the friendship with Seong-ju, which makes Young-sok very irritated. The boy asks about protection, but the officer says he will only reinforce security. But Ju Young-sung has one more question and pauses before continuing the conversation. He wants to know what made him change his mind, since it seemed he was going to take the secret to the grave. Young-sok stays silent for a moment, just looking down, not knowing what to say. In a rainy memory, Young-sok is grabbed by an older man back in the present. He thanks and apologizes to the detective, but changes the subject with that. Young-sok calmly leaves the police station, as if nothing had happened, but suddenly he hears someone shouting his name, leaving him very surprised. It's Yeon-jong who arrives, asking if he got into another mess. She explains that she was just passing by and followed him out of curiosity. Young-suk feels embarrassed, thinking the timing couldn't be worse for this. He tries to brush it off, telling the detective it's nothing serious. He just asked for help. The man then invites the girl to eat with them, to clear up the misunderstanding. She blushes deeply with embarrassment, while Young-suk doesn't understand the situation at all. Then, he notices a bag in her hand and asks what's inside. Yeon-jong freaks out completely and shouts that he doesn't need to know, calling him an idiot. The scene cuts to the sun setting over the city, with an orange hue. The two then walk together in silence, down an empty street, climbing a hill. He asks what she went to his house for, but she says it wasn't important. With a flushed face, she says she went because she was worried about his absences. Then Eun-jong remembers the day he visited her and carried her in his arms. Young-suk is left speechless, completely surprised by her unexpected concern. He is sweaty and confused, almost thinking that the delinquent Yeon-jong is cute. He then asks how she found his house, and she replies that she asked Jae-hee for help. He comments that they get along well, and asks if Yeon-jong really apologized. Satisfied with the answer, he just says that she did a good job. With that, he continues, saying that Jae-hee is a good girl, and told him not to worry. But Yeon-jong says that doesn't erase the bad things she did in the past. She finishes saying that's why she still feels bad. When they are together, the scene changes to a flashback, with Jae-hee on the ground, begging him to stop in the past. Young-suk gave a bizarre smile, saying it was just a joke. With a clenched fist, he watches a man already unconscious on the cold ground. In another memory, he gets irritated for spoiling his mood, while Eun-jong cries back in the present. He realizes he was forgetting something very obvious. He thinks about all the bad things he's done, which didn't disappear even after reincarnation. Then he remembers the angel's warning, saying that his soul wouldn't be saved. Back in the present, an awkward silence takes over as they walk. He then vents, confessing that he thinks he's a worthless person, beyond salvation, with a small smile. Eun-jong says that's obvious. After all, he is the ultimate delinquent. He just nods, and his seriousness surprises her a little. She feels a bit concerned about his reaction, softly calling his name shortly after. Young Sayok stops walking and says they finally arrived. He says a quick goodbye, telling her to be careful on her way back home. But before he can leave, she calls him, asking him to wait a bit. Young Sayok turns around, confused, waiting to see what she wants. Now embarrassed, she asks if he's eaten yet, and invites him to have dinner with her. The unexpected invitation makes him all sweaty, completely unsure how to react. The scene changes, showing Choi Eun-young in the kitchen, cutting vegetables on a board. She prepares a soup and tastes it to see if it's good. Sitting on the floor, Young Seo just watches the girl who is now in his house. He is completely confused, not believing that Eun-jong is cooking for him. Then he looks away for a second, paying attention to every movement she makes. But strangely, he kind of enjoys the whole situation, giving a silly smile as she approaches. He thinks that he is like a puppy, and Eun-jong like a cat. Then she hands him the pot and tells him to eat quickly, while it's still hot.